And we're live.
All right, thank you, Philip. All right, Steph, you're letting everybody in.
Yes.
All right, you give me the cue and I'm good to go.
I believe you are good.
All right. Welcome everybody to tonight's May 20th, 2025 full design review board meeting. I'm calling us to quorum. We have 7 out of our 8 members present. I call us to order. I am looking to hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Oh, move.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, motion passes 7-0. Staff, do we have any meeting minutes to approve?
Yes, that would be April 15th, April 22nd, May 6th, and May 13th meeting minutes.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve April 15th, April 22nd, May 6th, and May 13th meeting minutes?
So moved.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, motion passes 7-0. All right, now I'm looking for any general member comments that are not in pertaining to any of the applications tonight. Just raise your hand, staff, so staff can call on you. Is there any general member comments? I don't see any. All right, so then we will jump into tonight's agenda. First up on the agenda, we have application F on our agenda, which is 11309 South Shore Road. This is an appeal. Is the appellant here?
But yes, the appellant is here, and I just sent her a prompt to unmute. Ms. Funk, if you, she's on.
Did that work?
Yes, that works.
Okay.
Great. And staff, just one thing, somebody said the agenda link isn't working. I'm not sure if that's something we can check out real quick.
Sure, we'll make sure that gets reposted.
So, Ms. Funk, it's for an appeal. Thank you for coming tonight. All for an appeal we need is you need to prove that there was a misapplied guideline or that there was any new information present that the panel did not have when they made the decision. So feel free to take it away. You have as much time as you want. So please let us know what you're appealing.
I'm not sure what a misapplied guideline exactly would be, but I guess the new information is on the replacement deck that all the parameters seem pretty much the same as the original deck that they took off. But the item in question was white railings, which was incongruous really with the whole neighborhood, the house, because it was a brick house with brown trim. There was also a front deck, which is all brown, which is wood. And I was told by the applicant, because they saw my appeal and concerns, and they said that they in fact were able to come up with the saddle color that they had for the floorboards to use as the railing as well. But my understanding they submitted to you that that would change from what you originally approved as white railings. So that I'm a little confused. It's like,
So
I think I'm here to say that, yeah, because you approved saddle floorboards and white railings for a replacement deck. And my concern was because the applicant had emailed me and stuff that they in fact were going to use more the saddle brown color, which makes a lot more sense under the circumstances. So that is what my concern was, because no other house in the whole neighborhood has white railings. There's no white on their house at all. So it was kind of a glaring disparity from the adjoining front deck that they had. So my appeal was, why are the white railings, why were they approved? And I think it was because the applicant originally said they couldn't get another color and you approved it. But I've subsequently talked to, on email, the applicant, and they said that they were going to use saddle for the railings. And my concern was, then saddle for the railing should be what was approved so that historically can be referred to in the future. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense. And sorry, the one part you had broken up, but then you clarified it right then, so it worked out.
Oh.
Let me, staff, I have where's my agenda? I believe this was Emily, Samantha's, and Camilia's panel.
That is correct.
So that still leaves 4 of us to vote, so we should be good.
Mhm.
Or 5, yeah, 4 of us to vote. So from what Ms. Funk is saying, were you guys aware, was there any, for the white railing, was there any sort of discussion specifically on the white railing? Emily, do you remember?
I do not believe I was present for this application. I may have had a sub, but I don't actively recall this application. Staff, is there a way to check those records and see if I was in attendance?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I believe that was the meeting only me and Camille.
You and Camelia ran?
I don't recall Emily at this one. I think she was traveling.
Okay. So Emily, you can vote then. So it was a 2-member panel meeting, it sounds like. So then I will pose my question to Camelia or Samantha. For the railing, did the discussion come up at all about the white railing and there being any sort of inability to get the other kind? And now it sounds like we haven't heard from the applicant themselves, but it sounds like they're potentially willing to change away from that. But did that come up at all during the meeting?
No, I do not recall that was come up.
Yeah, I don't recall.
Right. And we are not aware of other color is being offered. Also, our understanding is that railing was on the side of the building, which is kind of like tucked at the side, at
Mhm.
kind of narrow side yard. So it was a very quick decision to accept the applicant.
Okay.
Is my speaker still on?
Yes.
Yeah, if this is one of the first Reston neighborhoods, but to familiarize, yes, it's on the side. When you're looking facing the house from the street, though the deck, there's a deck along the whole face of the house facing the street that's brown and wood. So, and also the house is a brown trim house. So yeah, it was just that the white was really a glaring kind of disparity of anything in the neighborhood or with the house. Because from what I read, it's supposed to be kind of integrated with the surroundings and the rest of the house. And there's nothing else on the house that's white. So you'd have a dark house with a brown deck in the front and a brown saddle floorboard with white railings.
Understood.
Yeah.
Also just recall when we see this applicant, we understand that the current decking and the railing are really in needs of repair. So certainly a project is in improvement.
Right, right. Yeah, and they're rebuilding what's already there, so it's not the deck itself, it's just the white railings because Trex can be painted if you can't get something browner. But like I said, I was told via email that they were going to use the saddle. But then I assumed that they submitted a revision or something and then they had not. So from
Okay.
what they've conveyed to me, they're like, oh yeah, we figured it out, But from my perspective as a long-term homeowner, I would like to have it kind of concretely articulated officially, I guess.
Yeah, I think with this, so from a misapplication of a guideline, because we have to look at it from an appeal standpoint, I do agree that it's kind of misapplying the guideline of to be harmonious with the existing architecture of the home. especially since they have other railings on the property. I do think this one is going to be a big enough difference to make it be an issue. It's a little unorthodox, but I was curious, is the applicant here?
Give me 1 second.
The applicant's
Yeah.
husband says they're here.
I believe they are. I'm asking them to unmute right now.
Oh, yep, Austin Powers, perfect. Yeah, let's get him.
Ask him how his XKE is.
Thank you. Thank you to the chair. Thank you to our neighbor, Sue. Yes, everything that Sue has said is correct. We did engage with her in February after we circulated our initial application for signatures with the neighbors about the color of the railing. On February 24th, we did submit a revision to our application to our covenant advisor. I believe it was a clerical error that revision was not included in the meeting items for the initial DRB meeting. It was never our intention to have white railings approved. After we discussed that with Susan in February, we modified our application. We are only seeking to install the saddle railings that are more harmonious.
Okay, perfect. So staff, since the applicant is willing, is the official proper is that we need to appeal the decision and then review it de novo and create a new motion? Is that the easiest, cleanest way?
I mean, not necessarily. The appeal could be denied, and then you could direct staff to work with the applicant to get the new color reviewed at a lower level if that's what you wish.
I don't really want to have to come back. So I mean, since the applicant's here and, you know, we won't really need a presentation. I agree. I think, you know, if we look at our guidelines, the guideline on our railing guideline, I think was misapplied just because the railing that was selected is not harmonious with the color of the deck as well as the house. I would make a motion to accept the appeal on that stance. Does anyone want to second that?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just one comment. Our minutes that have been approved by the DRB back in April have Emily making motions at that meeting. So
Maybe
for
she was
cautionary's tale, I would
Okay,
ask it.
we'll keep her out of it. So Emily,
Yep.
why am I drawing a blank?
I will abstain. Yep.
Yeah, abstain. That's the word. I was saying absentee. I was like, that's not right. All right. So there's a motion. There's a second. We have some clarification. So as a reminder, Camelia, Samantha, and Emily will not vote. All those in favor of accepting the appeal, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Elena, did you vote?
Yes, I voted aye.
Okay, Brian, you said aye as well.
I did, yes.
Kind of all went over, and
Yep.
then no nays, and then 3 abstentions. So the motion would pass 4-0-3. I would then, Austin, if you feel needed to make a statement, you can, or I can go ahead and make a motion for the application. It's up to you. Is he unmuted again?
Yeah, my statement would be that that Yara, my wife, the owner of the property, completely agree that the saddle railings are indeed more harmonious. We're grateful to our neighbor for raising this point. This is our first pass at the Reston Design Review Board. So we've seen how the process is supposed to work. And we're happy for the feedback, and we're looking to build the best deck that we can.
Great. And staff, if you go to slide 33, I think that would help clarify this color. I think, you know, it's not officially in the application, but I think if you look at that bottom picture there, that is the saddle color by Trex for the railing. And just so everyone is kind of on the same. Now, Austin, are you guys still planning to do the black pickets with the saddle body frame? You know that?
That is my understanding. I can confirm that with the contractor if that's a point that needs specific clarification.
I'm
I believe
assuming
it's
that's what
all
you're doing.
saddle
I'm
framing.
assuming that's
Mhm.
what you were doing, and I think that would look great. I actually think the black does well because it kind of disappears more and lets the, you know, kind of the deck just truly blend in and let that the railing disappear. And you have other black accents of wrought iron on other, like to your basement window well or whatever that is there. So I think it'll all be harmonious with the architecture. So I'll make a motion to approve the application with the following stipulation that the railing be a saddle, the Trex enhanced saddle color with black aluminum balusters as the only amendment to the application. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on that? And since this is de novo, everybody can vote. So all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Austin. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to 11576 Greenwich Point Road.
The applicant is present and Colin is unmuted.
So yeah, so we had an appeal that was accepted, and then now we're reviewing it de novo, correct?
Correct. There was additional information requested, which the applicant submitted for DRB consideration.
Okay, and then we have there's a new affected party as well has registered.
Correct.
My notes are telling me the applicant has not provided the additional materials.
The additional materials
I'm
have
just reading am I reading the right? Yeah, for Greenwich Point. It says the deadline to submit the request information was April 21st. However, the applicant has not provided the additional materials requested.
the information was sent to the DRB yesterday via
Oh,
email.
okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay, is the applicant here?
Yes. Colin, can you hear us?
I can, yes.
All
And
right,
I've
Colin,
got
welcome
I've got
back.
my wife Stacy with me here as well.
Great. So since we're reviewing this de novo, there are, you know, it's been a little while. If you could walk us back through the application quickly, and then the new information you can go through and, you know, detail to hopefully help us understand the matter a little bit more. Also, do you have your lighting experts here tonight as well, or?
I do. Patrick Carters and Andy Shoemate are here as well.
Okay, so
And
staff
then
is
I've
keeping
also
an eye.
got an interested party. Skip Edgemond is here as well.
Okay, great. All right, so go ahead and take it away, Colin.
So from my perspective, Michael, we had a we had a fire back in 2020. We were out of the home for about 18 months, and there was a lot of damage done, as you can imagine, being out for 18 months, including to lighting and including just a lot of damage. You know, it was just a lot of damage. And anyway, so we kind of reconfigured the front area and made a courtyard, if you will. And that courtyard had some lighting, down lighting that was coming out of pillars. And you can see those pillars in those pictures. There is a total of 8 of them. They're like very minor, you know, we're talking like 10 lumens, and Andy or Patrick can help me on what the lumens are. But it was all approved and everything was fine. Then we had the lighting that we had prior to the fire was trampled on by roofers, by siding people, by firefighters, etc. And so we replaced the lighting, and we did add to it. Frankly, we didn't even think about the approvals of it, but we did. We then went through. There was a complaint more than a year after the installation. And we went through, this is our sixth meeting on the matter. And the last meeting, the meeting before last, the plan that we submitted with all of the changes that we made, which were turning down the lighting, reducing, having the lights go off at 10 rather than midnight, and others, putting filters on lights. The matter was approved. It was approved by this board. We then got an appeal from the Reston Association. Specifically, that came from Cam Adams. And the reason that was brought to our attention, as I understood it, was the trespass test that we did not include the courtyard lights that were already had already been approved. But holistically, it wasn't in the last trespass light study that we did. So what we did is we went back, we updated the trespass light that included the pillar lights, and it increased the total lumens on the property by some 486 lumens or something like that. It was around 500 lumens. And so I think from my perspective, we've had at two different times, we've had the lighting approved, but there was an appeal. And I guess our team, Andy, Patrick, my wife, myself, and Skip and Skip's wife, Jamie, who are interested parties. Skip and Jamie are interested because they are our across the street neighbors. We're here to just answer. I didn't get a chance to really talk at the appeal meeting, so we're here to answer questions and hopefully get this resolved and behind us. Again, this has taken all of us on this call a lot of time. I assume, Michael, since I sent the documents Friday, which was my understanding of when the documents were due. But so I assume that you didn't read the documents and the report that was submitted. So anyway, go ahead, and we just want to answer questions and see if we can solve the problem.
Okay, thank you. We do have affected parties that need to speak on this. And then we'll come back and we'll go through with your experts and talk through any technical questions that we may have. So staff, do you have the affected parties and the new interested party as well?
I do believe we have at least one of the affected parties, and I do see the interested party as well. I am asking the affected party. I see it on mute. Marianne, I believe you received a prompt to unmute.
I did.
There you go.
Okay. I live in the neighborhood, and this lighting is quite different from what anyone else has. And I wonder if the Egan's are concerned about security. It seems so different from anything else in our North Point neighborhood. And I've been assured by the police themselves that there's really a very low security risk here, and I'm wondering if that's the concern.
All right. Thank you, Mary. You have anything else? Okay. Anyone else, staff?
We did have the interested party as well. Ask them to unmute. Skip.
Yes, I just unmuted. Hello?
Hey, Skip. Yep.
Yes, how are you?
Good. you have 3 minutes to kind of state your interested party status, and just for the
Okay.
record, if you could state your address as well.
Okay, my name is Skip Edgemond, and I live at 11571 Greenwich Point Road. I think I've been in this house for 28 years. I also am an owner of Greenworks Landscaping, and I've been in the business for 38 years. I look at the Egan's home every day, and I was really surprised when Colin brought this to my attention because I don't find anything offensive to the lighting that's been installed. I said I've been doing this for quite a number of years, but the thing that's interested to me is Reston's changing. So we had on our street the only remaining lakefront lot in Reston, and the house that was built was not quite conforming to the existing neighborhood. And so it seems to me that Reston's trying to be more progressive, more updating. And that's what the Egan's did. I don't, we can't go backwards. We got to keep going forwards. And they did a quality job. It definitely enhances their home at night. I've been looking at it for a year, I guess, and I had no idea this was ever an issue. The other thing that I don't understand is there any regulations on that Reston has that, and I'm not aware of any, of how you can illuminate your home in the evening? Is there any guidelines that people have to go by concerning this? Because again, I didn't find it offensive. They've taken great care to their home. They've upgraded their home on our street. Unlike some of the other homes that could definitely use a facelift, they've gone way above and beyond. So I just don't understand. I mean, this business is art, and some people appreciate things differently than others. And so I don't have an offense, and I live right across the street. So I really don't understand what the problem is. And as we discussed, there is no guidelines. And I believe also on Waterfront Road, there's a home that's quite illuminated as well, that I don't know if that's been taken into consideration as well, using that as a sample board for the Egan's.
Sorry, that is your time.
Thank you, Skip.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Do you have any, is Reston Association going to make a statement?
I believe so, but I do believe we have one other AP first.
Oh, sorry.
I have asked Nancy to unmute. Nancy Long, is that you? That I believe you received a prompt to unmute. I'm not sure if we have them.
You can also dial *6 if you're calling in by phone, Nancy. Okay. Other than Nancy, that's the only other affected party that we had on the call other than Reston Association.
Would you like to hear from Cam now?
Yep.
All right. Good evening. My name is Cam Adams. I'm the Director of Covenants Administration here at Reston Association, speaking on behalf of the Reston Association Board of Directors as a registered affected party. I will preface this with Reston Association most certainly wants to encourage homeowners to be able to improve the exterior of their property in the way that's most conducive for them and their environment, while also still maintaining the rules and the regulations of the association. So first, there are design guidelines that are applicable to this particular application. Second, there are rules in Reston Association that requires homeowners to submit an application prior to moving forward with any exterior modifications unless the design guideline requires. Since the original application was submitted through the means of a complaint, this was discovered through a complaint submitted to Reston Association from a property across the lake that identified the violation as being non-compliance since a DRB application was not submitted. Since that time, Reston Association has held and continues to hold the belief that 76 light fixtures on a property, landscape light fixtures on a property, are significant and have a meaningful impact to the association itself and the Reston community at large. More specifically, 76 light fixtures, landscape light fixtures, create a dangerous precedent for Reston Association members that are on the lake. To think if every property in Reston Association, whether on the lake or not on the lake, did exactly as this property. There are several properties in Reston, quite a few single family lots that are the same square footage size, 14,000 square feet. If this was done on every single property, we would be in a pickle. And Reston Association believes that the DRB must take that into consideration. We have held since July of 2024 that 76 fixtures is too much, and we have asked and we have documented that in our affected party statements that the DRB consider a reduction, specifically something that is more objective for the property owner to review and determine or discuss with his contractors, that would be more appropriate given the size of the property and the purpose of the light fixtures in itself. The Reston Association would also like to point out that the Environmental Advisory Committee that is made of homeowners in Reston Association, volunteers, unpaid volunteers at that, have reviewed this application and the merits of the application, including the supporting documentation. And they have recommended that the Design Review Board disapprove this application given the facts and the information that was included in the statement that was provided to the Reston Association and to the Design Review Board. The other information relative to Reston Association stance is in the appeal that was submitted and adopted and accepted by the Design Review Board earlier this year. So I won't reiterate those points. Those are memorialized in those comments. But I do want to make sure that the Reston Association shares again and affirms their position that the approval of this number of light fixtures on a property in Reston sets a dangerous precedent. Thank you.
Like Ken. Anyone else, Steph?
No, that's it for the affected parties.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? This is
Oh.
Nancy Long.
Yes.
I'm sorry. For some reason, I wasn't able to unmute earlier.
Perfect. Well, you have 3 minutes to state your affected party status.
Okay. I would just, I appreciate, I did not appeal this decision. It was Reston. I appreciate everything that Cam has said. And that was my initial question was this approved? It indicated that there was no application, and here we are de novo. And the concern that I have is part of what Cam said, that if every property was allowed to do what was done on not in the front of the house, but in the rear of the house, on the lake or elsewhere, it is significant. And so I hope that the board, in reviewing this, will consider, while the standards may not be specific, to the extent that they say anything, they say lights for security or landscaping should be directed towards the house, which I think is significant. And if anything over 6 needs an application and approval, certainly more than 10 times that amount would hopefully warrant some serious consideration before approval was given. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you. All right, now I think we're done, right, Steph?
Yes.
All right. Can you guys unmute Colin and Patrick, and I think it was Anthony potentially, or didn't catch the other person.
Andy.
Andy.
I have sent those requests.
Great. All right. So do you guys want to, I think we should just go through a quick, since we're reviewing it de novo and it's been, like Colin had mentioned, it's been, I don't know, 9 months, 10 months since we last reviewed this kind of truly. Can you guys walk us through kind of the improvements there's obviously the front improvements where the patio lighting was, which was a separate project. And then there was, which by the way, the patio and the improvements in the front of the home, they're absolutely beautiful. And it works great with the house. There's no doubt in from an architecture standpoint, those are looking very in fitting with the architecture. So I just want to be clear, we're not trying to discredit any bit of the project itself. It's just, I think the lighting is what we really want to look at and what we've been, appealed to look at. So can you guys walk us through these lighting again and just kind of the locations of them, how many are at each location, and then we'll go from there.
Michael, I think I'm going to ask Andy and Patrick to chime in on to take us through that. Andy is intimately familiar with the lighting, the plan, etc. Patrick, I think, has some things around security, some of the things that were brought up by Cam. I think that he'd like to address, and then my wife would like to speak, and I want to talk about at some point before we close. The affected party number 1 mentioned that that no one else on the lake has anything like this, and I just want to share.
Can I just
And while we're reviewing the lights, can we make sure to mention specifically which lights have had received reduction in? I know we've reduced some lumens on some lights, and
Can
there's
I
also
just-
been some covers as well added, or screens or whatever they're called to them. If you could also just walk through which ones received those treatments, because I just want to make sure we're clear on where we're at now. So
I just want to start, can I start with addressing some things that have come up several times? One being that we did not submit a DRB application for our lighting, and I want to address that right away because we would never do something that we didn't think we were allowed to do. If you go back to when we had the fire, you'll notice there were multiple times that we went to the board with things like the roof, the outdoor, we were in the middle of a renovation when we started. We had gotten approval for that. So there were many, many approvals that we sought. When we were putting our house back together to get back in, literally 90% of the outdoor lighting had been destroyed by the roofers and the people just working on the house. And we had at the time a pregnant daughter who could not even see to walk to the front door or out to her car. So the very first thing that we wanted to do was to get some lighting in for safety reasons. And honestly, because so much of it had been destroyed, that just didn't enter our minds then, because we weren't building something from scratch. However, when we did decide to do it, that we were going to do it right then, we did say, just like we did with everything that happened with the fire, we want to come back and be nicer than before the fire. So we were trying to do something more beautiful. And in addition to that, to address the concerns of the new affected party, we did have a robbery at our house where they accessed our house through the rear. Now, coincidentally, also in the midst of all of this, we had another daughter move back home with us with her infant child, and they lived downstairs in the basement, and you could get access to them from the back. So 100%, when we were doing lighting in the back, we were very concerned about security.
Great, thank you.
So I can go over and I'm Andy. I'm the lead designer with Daylum. I've been the designer here for 15 years, almost 16 years now. One of the things that I think is kind of a misconception with lighting is the number of fixtures that people are going over the 76 lights. It's not about so much the number of lights that is important, because in our line of work, lights are like candles. And it's an art form. It's not like what people are thinking, floodlights, where it is the number of lights make a difference. Like even at the house I'm at, my house now, I have a very similar number of lights, but I have 3 or 4 lights on every tree. You need multiple lights on every tree to properly illuminate that tree. But as long as they're set softly, that's what matters. And so when you hear, oh, there's 76 lights, that sounds like a lot, but everything on Collins property is set at we set everything at the lowest lumens. We make our own lights. We own our own product line. We own Sterling Lighting. Patrick is the owner of Sterling Lighting. We manufacture ourselves in right here in Danville, Virginia. What's proprietary to our brand is all of our lights are adjustable in brightness. One of the things we did last time when we got approved was we lowered the lumens to the lowest of every fixture, and we also put hex lenses or glare shields on every light, which is a glare deterrent on every fixture. But a key point I want to make is definitely that the number of lights is kind of not as quite as important, because it really does take, if you're doing a very artistic job in lighting, you really do need a lot of fixtures. Like my example before, multiple candles in a restaurant to give it that intimate setting. You need multiple candles, multiple lights under a tree, multiple lights under a house to properly light it. Back in the 90s, you would see homes with 4 big can lights just blasting the front of a home, and it was like stadium lights, and they would just flood the front of a house, and it was hideous. Now to light a home, it might be anywhere from 12 to 20 lights across the front of a home, but they're just a lot closer to the home. They're a lot softer. They're all LED now. They're using, next to nothing power wise. They're low voltage. So that's the way we went. And also everything is controllable at Collins' house through an app on his phone. Everything is off at 10 o'clock. So we did everything that was asked of him to get approval the last time. So that was the major factor that I really wanted to let people know and to kind of explain. We were dark sky compliant with the Reston Association. I work with them all the time. I've never not been approved. I work with Reston, at least once a week. So we followed every guideline. So I'm sure Patrick can say even more than me. He's been in the industry forever, but between the two of us, we've been around, 50 years combined. So, you got 2 people that really know what they're talking about on this property. And we definitely done everything we can to make a beautiful property. With also the big factor in the Egan's case was beauty with security and safety in mind, and that's what we did.
All right, thank you. And so, just clarifying one of your statements. So, you're saying this design is dark sky compliant right now? You're saying that it's certified dark sky.
And
correct.
I could chime in a little bit with that. I mean, obviously, Michael and the rest of the board, you have a very challenging task. I was actually nominated by the Association of Outdoor Lighting Professionals to really enhance dark sky compliant, because dark sky compliant is really involved in one issue, and that's protecting the sky. And we have a much larger issue, which is protecting neighbors, you know, and protecting the overall look of, you know, what lighting can do. If lighting is glaring, if lighting is overpowering, it actually can create a lot of issues, such as headlights coming at you when you're driving down the road is blinding. And so a lot of what we look at in this project and in all of our projects is trying to do it as responsibly as possible. I'm a certified LC. I'm the only certified LC in the Mid-Atlantic that deals in outdoor lighting. And this is something I'm very passionate about, is trying to design properties that look beautiful, that provide the security, that don't provide light glare. And just to give an example of like the big challenges, when I looked across the pond at Collins' his home that evening, the neighbor had one fixture that was completely compliant and had a ton of glare. It's an omnidirectional light with a, you know, probably a 50 watt equivalent LED in it. But there's a study done in Toronto not that long ago where they took a 7-watt incandescent lamp and they put it at the side of a lake, unprotected, and from 2 miles away, they could see it across a lake. And so it's a challenge. That's why I talked last time about cafe lights being a challenge. They're omnidirectional lights. A lot of coach lights, post lanterns are omnidirectional. And so what we did on this is, you know, the dark sky compliant is only dealing with the sky, not dealing with glare. You know, our study that we did actually dealt not only with the dark sky, but also dealing with glare towards neighbors and light leaving the property. And so each one of those studies takes us about 25 hours to produce the full look and the full overall you know, application it's going to have on it. And so, you know, we really think it's important that when we're looking at the lighting on this property, the maximum lumen light that we had was 230 lumens. Most of the lights were in that 70 to right at 180 lumens. A lot of downlighting. In fact, the one light that was totally compliant with dark sky was the downlighting. And the downlighting is the one that had the largest issue last time. So we went and dropped that to the lowest lumen possible. And that just has to do with dark sky doesn't look at reflectance. Dark sky doesn't look at light hitting a travertine patio and the light that's produced off reflectance, which can produce a lot of issues. So, you know, we're actually working, myself and another gentleman with the Association of Outdoor Lighting Professionals, to provide a much more complete study on lighting, so that we're not only protecting the sky, but we're protecting neighbors, and we're doing it responsibly with good shutoffs and everything else. Because, you know, it's important to let nature sleep. It's important for plants to have their circadian cycle so that they go dark at times. So, you know, most customers, we recommend to turn lights off at 11 o'clock. Colin's doing it at 10 o'clock. And so I believe we're doing it as responsibly as possible. And, you know, the issue is, like, what if you let somebody come in, an untrained lighting professional, come in and put in 75 lights on a property? You're going to have issues. And that's why we recommend to do the light trespass studies and to do the other things that we've gone and done on this property. The easy, like, knee-jerk reaction is just to ban lighting and to say lighting's all bad. But, you know, lighting is a beautiful piece of art. You see it in theatrical lighting and buildings being lit up. Most of the light pollution is happening from commercial lighting and not from a 150, 200 lumen light that's lighting a tree. But what we're looking at is the inverse square law, that the lumen depreciation happens at every 10 feet. You're losing half of the lumen output. So when we're at 10 feet high at 180 lumen light, we're already at 90. Once we get up to 20 feet high, we've dropped down to 45. So we're getting those foot candles down to the lowest level possible. And all our studies indicate that there's no light leaving the yard. There's no light getting into the sky, but instead it's staying on the property and giving that warm, welcoming feeling, instead of using security lights that are shining down off the side of the house, coach lights that people put on, or globe lights that are glaring towards neighbors, as Colin's neighbors across the pond are. And this is, you know, in my opinion, the most responsibly lit property in the entire neighborhood, even though it has a lot of lights. And Andy's example of candles is a great example, because if you have 30 candles lit in a romantic setting, it's beautiful. If you have one giant fluorescent light, it can look terrible. And so what we want to do is we want to design our properties so they look beautiful. They provide the security without putting any light into the neighboring properties. Every light is protected. We have glare guards on every fixture. We have shrouds on every fixture. We did down lights whenever we could, and path lights wherever we could that are fully compliant with dark sky. And the lights that are in the trees, the light is dissipating. And we actually design it so it's dissipating in the winter time. So like when we're setting our light levels on this property, we're setting it so, you know, in the winter time when the trees lose all their leaves, that we're not putting light into the sky. So we put a lot of effort to try and make this as beautiful as possible and as responsible as possible. We're not just trying to put lights in for the purpose of lighting, but to do it softly, to do it beautifully. And there is a glow that happens because it's, you know, there are lights on the property, but there's no light sources that are seen as you see from the neighboring houses. And there isn't glare going into the sky. So, you know, we really do want to work with municipalities like yours to give recommendations and use our knowledge and everything that we could provide so that lighting is done right, because one bad light source can truly, you know, annoy every single neighbor, and can be very harmful and cause a bad neighborhood because people get annoyed with it. And so we've tried everything we could to make sure that's not the case. There is lighting on it, but we've tried to make it as beautiful as possible.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Can I ask you a couple quick questions about the specific plan?
Yep.
So, staff, if you go to slide 118, please. Or maybe I jumped, I don't know. That's my slide. Yeah. So this is kind of the map. And if you zoom into the backyard, for these uplights for the SL01 fixtures, in the front of the house, the ones that are uplighting the trees are faced toward the home. Whereas in the backyard, they're faced away from the home. And I'm
Actually, they're faced straight up.
What's the decision?
Yeah, they're faced straight up. So both the front, most of the lights are on the front of the house. They're faced straight up towards the tree or at a slight angle going on the tree. So they're not actually facing out. It's just, you know, as the map allows us, that's the placement of the lights, but they're not actually pointing towards anywhere besides up into the tree. And they're set at a low lumen, like I said, between 100 and 183. I think the brightest light we have, and that was a guess because we didn't install the underwater lights. So we took the best guess at it. Obviously, water is going to affect the lumen output a lot, and you're not going to get much light coming out of it. But the lights are not designed to point any direction except where we want to put that light, which on those is going into the tree. And that's a decision that I think is better than putting lights on the house shining out towards the pond or shining out into the yard, as you see in so many security lights.
When I think the SLL ones that I'm seeing, they are the minimum fixture is 230 lumens. So there's 44 of those. So those are 44 uplights at 240 lumens, which is a little over 10,000 lumens.
That's without we put the hex glare guards on it, and that cuts out about 35% of the light output
35%
with our IES testing we did on those. So we went back and put all the hex guards on it. And I think we spoke last time, and the discussion was those weren't that bright. It was the downlighting on the patio that seemed bright, and that's
the SL23s.
SL23, and that was the reflectance that was bright, not the light itself, because that's shining straight down. And if somebody followed dark sky, you can do an 800 lumen light shining straight down onto a patio, and they don't account for reflectance because they don't consider the neighboring communities. They just consider the sky, but there's a lot of reflectance that happens on, you know, a lighter colored surface, such as a white stone patio, a travertine patio, anything like that is going to reflect it. So we dim those down, and we put a hex filter on that as well, to dim those down as much as possible, and to really to make sure everybody was happy. We're trying to make sure the neighborhood's happy and obviously not cause problems.
Okay, well, let me go around the room, see if anyone has any questions for you, and then we will have some discussion. So, Brian, did you have any questions?
No questions at the moment.
Okay. Samantha?
I have no question.
All right. Camelia?
Questions here. Thank you.
Elena?
No.
Emily?
Only question I have real quick, and it's just a clarification. I'm assuming the color temperature on these lights is set to, are we at 3,000? Or are we at the warmest color temperature for all
We're
of them? Or what color temperatures are we
We're
set
at 3,000 degrees Kelvin, which, you
Okay.
know, all the studies, that's what everybody wants.
Yep, just double checking. Thank you. That's it for me.
John?
No.
Okay, well, we'll come back to you guys if we have any questions while we have some discussion, okay?
Okay.
So Brian, do you have any thoughts?
Sure, yes. First, I really appreciate the effort that went into the application and bringing these experts in to educate us and talk about the thought that went into the design of this house. And I think it would be great if this house had a little more land to it, and weren't right on the lake. And I think that's where the problem is for me, where the concern is, because the lake, the lakes are kind of Reston's most precious resource, most precious shared resource. And I've seen the house from across the lake, and am concerned about the light spillage over to the lake. I mean, obviously it's affecting people's enjoyment of the lake. And so I guess I don't understand. For me, it comes back to the lights in the back. And it's the combination of the uplights on the tree and the lights in the tree facing down. To me, that is in conflict with the guidelines that talk about the lights needing to be focused towards the house, they need to be shielded, things like that. So I am concerned about these uplights on the tree. I don't understand how that's fitting into the guidelines, that whether it's artful and beautiful as it is, that's where a conflict is coming in for me at the moment, and where I think it's contributing to the issues that we're having.
Okay. Samantha, any thoughts?
I hasn't not supporting this project and still not supporting this project. Particularly for the 44 uplight, I has been object to it. I found that it's with understanding how the dark light is advocating, I just can't find any document that any uplight is in compliance with dark light policy, dark sky policy. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. Camelia, do you have anything?
No comments.
Elena?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Emily?
Yeah, I would just like to again thank the applicants for a very thorough presentation. And I'd like to add that, while we're talking about lumen counts and dark sky compliance, I am in agreement that I would vastly prefer to see fewer or more fixtures at a fewer lumen or fewer wattage than a bunch of, high voltage fixtures. For instance, if we're looking at, if they said that everything has been turned down to its lowest wattage with the figure count, minus, not even taking into consideration the hex glare, the hex shields, we're looking at about 255 watts. And if you get a standard carriage light and mount it to a house, they can range from 60 watts to 120 watts. So we're talking about the equivalent of what could be 4 carriage lights on someone's house in the terms of wattage and lumen output. But because it's spread to create this overall glow, I think it's creating some confusion. I'd also like to say that while we're looking at the lights pointing up at the trees, that is something, the reason it's dark sky compliant is because the foot candles do dissipate once it gets up. And if you're an airplane or a drone looking down at the house from a certain elevation, that light just isn't going to protrude that far into the sky. That's why, you know, you can have giant street lights on roads that are pointing down and they're technically dark sky compliant. So I think, I mean, my personal opinion is that this is artfully done, and we are arguing about the definition of the term excessive, which is what our guideline states, and whether or not we personally deem the number of fixtures excessive versus the quality of the installation excessive, I think is a slippery slope, because it is a very subjective term, and that's going to differ between all of us here on the board and arguing about what is and is not excessive. To me, I would rather see a property have a lot of fixtures, again, many candles, done in a very dim and romantic way, as opposed to a couple of hot spots that, you know, 4 security lights or whatever we might have on each side of the house that we would approve, that would be a lot more bright and disruptive than the current kind of overall glow and aesthetic of the landscape. So that is my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Emily. I think the one big thing I would say is in security lighting, just since you brought it up, you know, security lighting we usually require to be on motion sensor. And so the tricky part about this project is there's nothing on motion sensor. So from a security standpoint, it's, you know, it's always lit. The security lights that we usually approve, if they are of a higher, you know, wattage or lumen or whatever term you want to use, it's usually because they're tied to a motion sensor that if somebody's trying to climb up someone's back deck, you know, the thing goes off and boom, you know.
But you
even
could
if
also
they-
have a carriage light that's on your back deck that's on all night. I mean, in our neighborhood, we encourage everyone to leave their front porch lights and their garage lights on all night, because we have no street lights, and it's part of what enhances the security of the neighborhood. So they're not security lights, but we're using them as security lights. So while we're, you know, talking about landscape lighting versus security lighting versus architectural lighting, again, all of them kind of bring in, we don't have a number, we don't have a metric, we have the word excessive.
Correct.
And that's important to bring into consideration.
Agreed. Yeah, and just to be clear, so everyone knows what Emily's kind of talking about. Where did it go? I just had it in front of me. It's in our single family detached guidelines for lighting. Why am I drawing? Where did it go? Oh, it's because I'm on the security lighting, that's why. So on the decorative lighting, it says specifically, landscape lighting should be integrated into the natural environment and designed to complement the architecture of the house. The design, wattage, lamp source, and number of fixtures must not result in glare or excessive light levels when viewed from the streets and neighboring properties. And so this word excessive is kind of used between, for landscape lights, kind of says the same word in deck lights. So I believe that's what you're referencing, correct, Emily?
Yes, that is the standard that we are arguing up against, is the subjective understanding of the word excess.
Yep. All right, John, do you have any comments?
Only the fact that lighting technology has changed so much in the last 10 to 20 years that a lot of nomenclature and what people think of as excess is probably old history.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to look at was, and I just had a couple more questions for, I think it was Patrick. If we go to slide 14 and 15, and this is specifically looking at the light study that was done. And I just had a couple questions about some higher readings that are happening up high and what is causing that and kind of how could we potentially minimize it. Because I appreciate that, you know, we have taken means to lessen the impact of each light, but there has been no concession of taking away any lights. And I think we want to work together on it. I mean, it's an existing, you know, install, so it has a little bit of a little bit harder, you know, situation because of that. And so I just want to look at and do hypotheticals, almost like, okay, well, what is causing this level? What is causing this little bit of extra light up in the air? Because I think that's the big thing, is that there's light, 20 feet and above, that is really causing a lot of issue. And so I'm just trying to figure out what's causing it. So here, as an example, or go down one more slide, Steph. If you zoom in between those two trees that are straight ahead, there's a 4.9 lumen or 4.9 rating, foot candle rating up there, but below it, it's 2, below it, it's, and then it goes down, and on the ground, what exactly is causing kind of those higher readings up above? There's a 4.5 over to the right, 2.8, what is causing those higher readings above the trees?
And just to be clear, like, that's 2 foot candles, which that's really, really minimal. Like, that's very, very small. If you go and look at like how much light is at 2 or 5 foot candles, that's really dissipating to just about nothing. If you have a foot candle of light is a very low level of light. In fact, the moon, I'd have to double check and go back and look at my LC exam on how much light the moon puts out, but it's excessive of that. So it's not a lot of light. I'd have to look to see where that 2.4 to I actually would think those should be reversed, that 2.4 to 4.9. It should be 4.9, 2.4. So that might be something just in the program that my architect was working through. All of them we're trying to get right at that, somewhere in that under 3 foot candles as we're getting to the top of the tree. And that's assuming no leaves in the tree. When the leaves are in, that should be less than that. And that's what we're trying to design systems. It's obviously subjective because you're working with a natural material tree, where every tree is different. So we're measuring it out and trying to do our very best to make sure that we're not getting light into the air. And really the most important thing is light getting into going towards the neighbor's property, and that they could see the sources of light, which you'd have more than that if you just had cafe lights. A couple cafe lights would probably do a lot more than that, but that might just be a mix up because it dissipates the inverse square laws. The light cuts in half every 10 feet. So I think those 2 numbers are just transversed on there.
Okay. Yeah, because I think the big thing is that, from the affected parties, from resident association, from the EAC committee, from a bunch of different, entities, I think the biggest thing is that it's still, and Emily's right, it's a very subjective term of excessive. I think it's a tough position for us to view what is necessarily causing kind of that total aura effect, because I think the downlights, everything that is pointing downwards, I think, lighting the pathways, it's lighting the, the wall floodlights of the house. Those are all things that I think we can come to at least on my end, we can come to a resolution. Those are okay. I think ultimately the fact that this, the tree canopies are completely fully lit at night, which then inherently give off this appearance, whether it's soft light or whether it's, bright or not, it's still giving off the whole total difference of, the house next door, which has the tree is completely dark and this tree is completely lit. And I go back to, if every single property did this along the lake, if every single person had this type of lighting in their property in Reston, there's no way we would have any, wildlife or night. The whole place would be lit up. And so to argue that it's completely in compliance with our guidelines, I just think there's a stark contrast of difference, and that's what's always been the determining factor. And so I'm just trying to find a way to lessen a little bit of lighting of those trees, because I think that's really, like Brian was mentioning, I really think that's what's contributing to the overall factor of the site. I think a lot of the other lights are like you said, they're pointed downwards, they're not really affecting it, but it's these ones that are really coming out of the tree and are dissipating and are, kind of catching the branches and probably spreading. And then also the ones kind of shooting up into the tree as well. I think all of that, there's one, shot right down at the dock as an example. That's going to go right towards the lake, which is adding to kind of that overall glare, I want to call it. Obviously the water is going to be more reflective surface than anything. And it's unfortunate, but it's there. So it's something that to me has to be accounted for. And so that's where I'm trying to come to a resolution. And I mean, are you guys willing to lessen any fixtures, or are you guys just standing on your fixtures the way they are?
And I mean, obviously it's not my property. I would just say like a number of things is when we had the discussion last time, and I think a number of people came out, the uplighting wasn't the big concern. It was actually the brightness of the downlighting shining onto the patio was the brightest part of the subject. Lighting is a very challenging issue because, as I said, the neighboring property had one light that was very glaring, and it's just one light that nobody could really complain about. I have a neighbor that does the same thing. I live on a large property. I have a lot of lights, and none of them shine in my neighboring's property, but my neighbor has one coach light that does, and it drives me crazy. So I completely get it, and I'm trying to write code to help out on some of this for a national program. I think if everybody did lighting and they actually went through and did light trespass studies and looked at lumen levels and looked at foot candles and where they're reaching to, if the community did that, and then the more important thing is that they have a time for the lights to shut off. If you go to the Outer Banks, like as many of us do, lights shut off at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night so that people can enjoy the stars. I think that's an important thing that's more important than almost every other regulation. When we let lights just run dusk till dawn, we have a lot more issues. We need to let nature sleep. We need to let the animals sleep, the plants rest, and everything else. They need that circadian rhythm. And so those are all important things. But the lighting, if you have a small light lighting up into a tree that's at 1 to 3 foot candles, by the time it gets to the top of it in winter, in the summertime, most of them are getting eaten up. The light's getting fully engulfed by the time it gets to the top of the tree. It provides a soft lighting, but actually in this picture here, you can see there's another neighbor across the pond, and I don't think that was done as responsibly as Collins was as well. But yeah, I mean, I think looking at the different light sources that people are using, the different types of fixtures you're using, the glare guards, and the best thing that any community could do is have an off time. So the lights go off at a certain time so people can enjoy the night, because when they do go dusk till dawn, there's no reason on most properties for lights to be doing that. That's just automation control. So you could hit a button and turn the lights on if you hear a noise, but then they could go off and act as your security lights at 2 a.m, or if you pull in the driveway, coming in from the airport, you get the lights on for 10 minutes and then they go off. So those are all things that are important. But if we have one light on a tree, you're going to have harsher light up on the base of the tree, where if we are able to pull it back a little bit and soften it, you get the fullness of the tree lit up if, say, you're lighting a tree. And it just looks softer and more elegant. And we could actually go softer on the lighting than trying to put one light on it. So I don't envy your position, because it's hard to regulate this. And I was working with Willisford, and they've tried to manage no light within 10 feet of another light. So, landscapers are putting in lights that are twice as bright because they can't get as much. They're going further apart from each other, and it's defeating the entire purpose of what they're trying to do is, reducing glare, reducing bright lights. So I'd be happy to come in and work and come up with some good solutions. But I think the best thing in the world is that lights go off at a time.
All right, thank you.
As the
Colin, you had something to say?
As the homeowner, we are perfectly willing to make compromises with things. When this first happened, we're defending what we think is beautiful, because we would think it would be beautiful if everybody did it. We're not trying to just get our house and we don't want to disturb the neighbors. There was somebody that complained, and I felt bad that she didn't like it. So we did make concessions. We turned them off earlier. We lowered the lumens. We put the screens on. We did quite a number of things. But we certainly are still willing to do things. It's just, we want to make sure that this is being looked at accurately. Like, for instance, with the calculation of the number of lights, and without people really realizing what Patrick was saying about that shouldn't be the determining factor here. I mean, we think it's beautiful, but we want everyone to think it's beautiful.
Okay, I'd like to just say a couple things. First of all, the slides that you have, the affected party, the first person that spoke, she said that no other home on the lake has lighting quite like this. And you can see, and you can scroll, who's ever sharing that screen right here, these are the pictures that I submitted to the board months ago. But if you could just scroll through those pictures and look at that lit up house on the left that Patrick said wasn't done as well as our home. If you just don't mind, I've got some close-up pictures. I just want to make the point that if you don't have it handy, I have it up and I can share it. But I want to make the point that everybody's opinion is different, and I'm realizing that my wife's opinion now is different than mine. So that's going to be something
That's
that we'll talk
typical.
about later.
That's the same in my house too. So don't worry.
So I guess you can. So anyway, while you're saying that, while you're pulling that up, I would say that the security issue, the first person, and that's the property there on the left. But I have a lot of pictures of that particular house and others on the lake, including the rest in what used to be the visitor center. And how that's lit up, and it way outdoes ours. But and for me personally, my view is different than some of you on the board, and maybe the same as others. If every house on the lake was lit up every night until 10 or 11 o'clock, I would think it'd be great. I would think it'd be gorgeous. But that's my feeling, and I know that that's a personal thing. But so there is a couple of shots. These are just pictures that I randomly took. But if you take the house on, if you just scroll through on these slides, and I think it's before, it's prior to the go up. Yeah, there's the visitor center. Keep going up, I think. You can see that house on the left on the right picture. Keep going up one more if you don't mind. Oh, this is 1486 Waterford Road. It's right across the lake. And if you go up one more, you can see that it is quite lit. And I did ask if this was approved by the board, and I was told that I would have to submit paperwork and such, and I just didn't want to go there and get this neighbor all upset. I'll do that, in the later date if I have to. But anyway, so that's one point. But there are other homes, and you all got that PowerPoint, and you can see their homes, including the Reston's Visitor Center. The second point is security. Security is, I travel a lot. I travel to Asia. I travel, all over the country with my job and my business. And my wife is here with my 3-year-old granddaughter and my daughter. And security is not just keeping the bad guys out. Locks are to keep the honest people honest. But it's a mindset. It's a feeling of security. And so I want my wife to be happy. I have been married 35. I'm trying to get to 36. We'll see after tonight. But so security is. But I will say this: that person gave inaccurate information. This burglary that we had was reported. We had helicopters flying over the house, lights shining down to try to find the perpetrator, and they did find him. And I guess he's back out on the street again, but he was not for a while. And then, I think an important thing is here, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Stacy and I love the property. We love the lighting that Patrick and Andy did, and their company, and I've served as a reference for them, and I would hire them again 100 times. So I think that, it makes us happy. And Stacy and I want to invest in the backyard of the property, which I believe will mitigate the reflection off of the stone. But I'm waiting to get this done so I can go. I don't want to have an outstanding issue with the board when I come back with another plan. It won't be lighting, I promise. But anyway, so I want to say a couple of things. You know, if Michael, you said if every house did this, as long as they turn it off at 10 or 11 o'clock, I would love it. I'm just one person. And Emily said, you know, she mentioned the, you know, the romantic feel of the home. We feel that. And that has a big impact on Stacy and I's lifestyle. We've lived in the home for 33 years. We love the home. But it definitely enhances our life and our quality of life, and until tonight, our relationship. So we'll see. Anyway, I know this is a lot of work. I'm a volunteer on various boards, and I really appreciate the work that you all are doing. And I know it's not easy, especially we've gone almost an hour and a half, so, or at least an hour. So I think if Michael, if we can get a vote, let's go.
Okay, so just to be clear, you want to just you personally would not want to remove any sort of lighting at this time. You want us to vote on it the way it is.
I want to vote on it the way it is.
Okay.
Please.
All right. Any further comments from any board members?
Well, yeah, it's just tough because I'm sorry. So much work has gone into this, and so much, you know, good design to make it beautiful that I really wish I don't want to have a wholesale, like we need to rethink the whole thing again. I think it's hopefully just a couple instances where we can potentially come to a compromise and we're not changing, you know, security or anything like that, but we are minimizing that excessive light spill out into the lake for other people to enjoy. So, like, just for a question, I'm just wondering, like, why do we even have uplights on the trees at all? For example, like because I'm seeing if we're going to the guidelines and that's what we're supposed to use to base our decision on, I'm seeing any, you know, directable lights should be directed towards the house, for example.
Brian.
Yes.
Brian, I'd like to invite you over to the house, have a glass of wine, a cup of coffee, whatever you like, and you'll understand why we wanted the lights up on the trees. It's art. It's beautiful for us. You know, it's an emotional thing. I think there are people even on the board whose emotions are coming through. And for us, we have that. We have emotions too, and we feel like it's beautiful, and we love it. And you know, I really don't want to compromise it.
Especially since the fire, we're trying to. I mean, that was so jarring to us, all of that whole experience, and so we were trying to come back better. And I just feel badly if somebody doesn't feel that we did come back better.
Brian, from a precedent setting standpoint, I'm very nervous about saying, oh, we don't allow uplights on trees unless we want to go back and say something about that, because that we have innumerable applications where we've allowed landscape lighting, uplighting on trees. And if we just, you know, if we go forward and we say, hey, we're not allowing landscape uplighting on trees that are waterfront, you know, 2025 forward, but there's still projects that would be, you know, grandfathered in that we've approved before that. So I hear you. I would just be worried that would open up a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I'm trying to, and I appreciate what the homeowners have just said very much. I mean, I really do. Since it is so, we're talking about it being so objective. I'm trying to figure something out, something for us to come back to, in order to make a decision. And so that's why I'm trying to bring it back to the guidelines in some way. Maybe that's not the right example. In this case, I brought it up just because the trees on the back, while beautiful, have the uplights directed at them and lights in the trees pointing back down. So that was just an example of something that I was hoping, you know, we could talk about as a way to find a compromise and minimize some of that spillage that's going off the property.
Yeah, and I think the word is excessive, right? I mean, I think the only way to deem that would be to look at in the past, just what have we approved on other properties based on their square footage of home, based on their square footage of lot, etc. And how much does this surpass it? Because I know in my time, I've been on the board now, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years. This is definitely the most amount of lights that I have ever seen. Obviously, I know lighting has changed technology wise. I get all that. And I think the reason why it's before us is because there are people who do feel it is excessive, or else it wouldn't be before us. I mean, at the end of the day, it was a complaint is originally what brought it. And there's been multiple appeals by Reston Association. We've had a whole environmental advisory committee look at it. I mean, it's not like it's a small potato subject. And so to me, because of all that, subjectively, that to me, that is at that point, it then has deemed it is excessive. That is just my opinion. Obviously, to take a vote, someone has to make a motion.
Question for the applicant before we move forward with that. They mentioned that the hex shields have been put on. Have those been put on the downlights as well as the uplights? And do these photos, because I know these are older, like from the original application, do those reflect, any of these photos reflect the hex shielding? I know the lumen candle output does, but I think we're getting caught up on the photos and the glare. Have any of these photos been taken since the hex shields have been put on and since the lights have been dimmed?
Patrick, that would
Well, actually, I would be the photographer. And the answer to that is no, Emily. They haven't. And then, but I need Andy or Patrick to answer the question on the hex on the downlights.
Yeah, the hex lenses were put on after the photos. So this is when it was at its brightest, which still looked nice, pretty, but it was, those are, it's softened up since then. And Brian, like just to go to your discussion on uplights, and it's something that we're challenged with a lot. I work with Elephant Theory Deco, who did the Acropolis, and we're doing a project together right now. And that was a question in Greece where they want environmentally friendly light, and how do you light up something like that structure? And she's like, I wanted to downlight it, but there's no way to really do it, and uplighting it made it look more beautiful. But the question really is like, is there light going past the trees? Is there light going into the neighbor's yard? If we're able to do it in a way that we could capture the light before it gets into the sky or before it goes into the neighbor's property, that's the biggest thing. So we're not affecting the night sky, and then obviously shutting them off. But that's what we try and do on the design, is make it so that the light is going to very low foot candles by the time it hits to the top of the trees.
Yeah.
We have a neighbor that didn't even know we changed our lighting immediately to our right. She didn't even know we had changed it. When we talked to her, she actually spoke, I think 2 times ago, Rena.
Yeah.
She didn't even know we had changed our lighting.
Yeah. Michael, I think we ought to vote on it, and we'll go from there. Can somebody make a motion? Can I make a motion to call a vote?
No, unfortunately, you can't. Okay. So I'll make a motion. And we can have some discussion on it once it's made. It obviously has to be seconded. I've been down this road before.
Pardon me, Chairman Wood. There was a question if there was lights, were there pictures taken after the hex lights were installed, and it's on page 47. It was a part of the packet, the appeal packet. That's on the screen.
Okay.
Okay, was this, who took these pictures, LaShonda?
I'm pretty sure I took these pictures.
Oh, okay.
And I would like to note that when I took these pictures, I think I was using like an iPhone, whatever, 15, 16, whatever at the time. And I left my exposure on for as long as it would possibly go to make these as bright as they would possibly be with the exposure on my camera. So I would like that to be put in as a caveat. So it was like, this is the worst case scenario, leaving the exposure on your phone. Like the moon was not even out at night and you can see how bright the sky was. I think I was there at like 9-10 p.m. So that I don't think I took these as after the appeal, but I don't think that the hex, I don't know when the hex lenses were installed, but I was the one that took these photos in the go-see.
After the appeal. Okay, then I think these are the most current then, Michael
Yeah,
Fried.
and the Dropbox link is a video that I had taken when I was there, and I just videoed it from the dock across the way behind the townhouses there. So, all right. Does anybody want to make a motion? And if not, I can.
I'll make a motion. I would make a motion to approve the application as submitted.
Second.
All right, any further discussion on it? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. All right, if you're in favor of the motion, say aye. Brian?
No.
Samantha?
No.
Camelia?
Aye.
Elena?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I vote no. The motion passes 4-3, 0-0. All right, thank you guys. All right, moving on to application H, 11229 Leatherwood Drive.
I was not able to identify the applicants. If you're here, please raise your hand or say something in the chat.
He's present. John South is the applicant. We're sending you a prompt to unmute.
We're on Leatherwood.
Sean Mayer.
Oh, sorry.
He's our buddy Sean. We know Sean well.
Jumped on too quickly.
I was gonna say,
We've seen Sean a couple times, but I don't see him on here.
He is not.
I'll just just because other people have been waiting, I'm going to make a motion to defer this application to the end of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right, that one will move to the end. Staff, if you guys could reach out to Sean and see if he wanted to be a part of it. I'm assuming he has, because he has been for all the other times he's been here. All right, moving on to application I for Newport Shores Cluster. All right, so we accepted an appeal and then we were going to review it de novo, correct? But the applicant was not here. Is that accurate? Or am I making that up?
That's correct, Michael.
Okay, that's what I thought. LaShonda was looking at me crazy, but I don't know if that was just Zoom.
I'm sorry. I'm dialing in. I'm trying to get in contact with the previous applicant.
Gotcha. All right, so the applicant is the applicant here now. I believe that is John South for the
I'm here.
Newport Shores. All right, John. So walk us through. Obviously, you weren't here when we accepted the appeal, but the issue is the finish of the actual paint being a semi-gloss versus a satin. So if you want to go ahead and take away what you guys are presenting tonight to get approved, we're reviewing it all de novo. So, which means
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I don't think I missed something. We've actually heard this with a smaller group back around the first week in January, and then I think it just got continued. But anyway, so I'm the president of the cluster. We have 32 homes. Over the years, we've had several homes that I think put on semi-gloss, including myself, based on the painter's recommendations to keep our Cedarside homes in good order. And then at one point it came up that, well, satin's in our design standard, so we took it out to our membership at our annual meeting and said we're going to approach the DRB about having a semi-gloss option put in our cluster standard. We met all the quorum requirements. We actually had 16 or so, half of our homes showed up for the meeting, the annual meeting, and I made these swatches that I then used for swatches. And part of the problem was we had, and we passed these around. Part of the problem was we didn't have real good color swatches at RA to begin with because of formulary changes and things like that. So I worked with Sherwin-Williams and got the new formula, both for a satin and a semi-gloss. And then we passed that around and it was approved and we submitted it to RA. RA added that, hey, let's go ahead and include the verticals because you hadn't had the vertical siding included. And we did that. And then the affected party came forward. I really think that if, we would probably get 90% or more of our homes if I knew that this was going to be an issue with this. But by the same token, we want to do what needs to be done. We think that it makes the houses look sharp in an otherwise gray neighborhood. It's a pretty gray neighborhood except for our green doors and our green chimney caps. It's kind of interesting color scheme. All the homes have done very well as far as price-wise. They continue to just set new records, and we see a lot of that. There's a lot of glare that happens naturally with cars and, of course, on the lake, as we saw earlier, being on the other side of the lake. We've had no other complaints, and even the new painters that we have all basically said, when asked point blank, would you do that? And they'd say, yes, we would go semi-gloss. So that's certainly invite anyone to come take a look. So, and look and see what you see. It's not, it doesn't seem to be an issue for anybody.
Okay, thank you. Staff, we have an affected party, I believe. If we could unmute
Yes, I'm
Darcel.
asking them to unmute. Darcel, you should have received a prompt.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Darcel. If you could state your affected party status, you have 3 minutes and you can start whenever you want.
Okay, so I had an interesting conversation with one of the people that was at the voting the evening of the social, Karen Denhoff across the street. And I showed her the pictures. They never discussed the sheen. She didn't even remember seeing pictures. That's not to say the pictures weren't shown. I think that there are only 2 houses, the one that I look at and maybe the cluster presidents that are currently painted. And as you can see by the pictures that I submitted, at certain times of the day, it is horrendous looking. I cannot believe that any qualified painter would recommend this, since I had spoken to the people at Sherwin-Williams as well as the owner of Color Wheel in McLean, who said they would never recommend painting semi-gloss on horizontal siding for the very reason of the glare and how tacky looking it is. If you live in the home and you paint your own home, maybe you're lucky enough that you're not looking at this house, but I do. The pictures that you see are the views that I see when the sun hits. So more importantly, I'm just trying to save the neighborhood in the future from having one house shiny, one house flat, another house shiny. It's extremely unattractive.
All right, thank you, Darcel. All right, let me go around and see if anyone has any questions for the applicant. So if we could unmute the applicant, please. Brian, did you have any questions?
No questions.
Samantha?
No questions.
Camelia? Elena?
No questions.
Emily?
None for me.
John?
No.
So the only question I have, so I'm just being honest, if your house was not painted semi-gloss, would this have ever come before the board as an updated selection?
It probably would have because of the other people in the neighborhood. My neighbor right next to me has semi-gloss.
I think the big reason why we accepted the appeal, and I kind of was a proponent of it, is that just from an architectural standpoint, semi-gloss is just not used on siding. It's used on trim and windows and doors, but it's just never used on siding. It helps, satin helps hide imperfections. It helps reduces glare. It helps still have that cleanable, durable surface that you're looking for, which the semi-gloss provides, but it's just not on such a large surface. I just don't think it's an appropriate use of paint. I've never used it in my professional career for a face of a building. And that was kind of the big reason why I wanted to, even vinyl siding doesn't come in a semi-gloss texture as an example, because it's just not an appropriate finish for siding. Does anybody have any other thoughts or comments that they want to say? Brian, do you have any comments?
Nope.
Samantha? Camelia?
None here.
Elena?
Can you, so I've been an architect longer than you.
True.
And I've designed probably twice as long. And I've actually written master construction specification used throughout the country. And flat or satin is recommended for horizontal siding. That comes from the Master Painters Institute, which is a Canadian organization. That's just the standard. And for all the reasons why Mike said.
Thank you. Emily?
No additional comments. Thank you.
John?
Shiny semi-gloss emphasizes the imperfections of the siding, the rough texture of it. That's why it's not used. I do not support the use of semi-gloss on siding.
All right, does anybody, so for the application, were they strictly just adding, I believe they were trying to add satin and semi-gloss, from what I remember correctly. John South, is that correct? You were trying to add.
Oh, we have satin in our standard, I think,
You have
already.
satin for both already?
Yeah, we have it for both, and we're adding an option for gloss.
Because I thought the way they made it look, and I'm reading this, staff, if we go to slide 15, I just want to make sure we get our, ducks in a row. I see that the horizontal cedar siding, you have it as flat or semi-gloss revision, vertical cedar siding, satin or semi-gloss. So I'm assuming that's what you requested. So I just want to, this would be an option. All right. Well, I think the cleanest way is to just clarify exactly what our, kind of in our motion, what the finish is versus what would be not if we denied it. Because I think you guys don't have satin in your guideline. Yeah, see, it just has flat for horizontal there. And so what I don't want to do is, pigeon, leave out the fact that satin and make you go through the whole thing in just how I'm reading the room. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the application with the following amendment, that the finishes for the horizontal and vertical cedar siding at that moment could be flat and or satin paint. No, in removing the semi-gloss as an approvable paint finish.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 7-0. All right, thank you, everybody. All right, moving on to application J, which is Vantage Hill condos with some window replacements. Is the applicant here?
I believe so. I'm asking them to unmute.
Hello.
I believe that the members from OR Partners and Chris, you've been unmuted, I believe.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Who will be presenting on your are you presenting on your behalf of
Yeah,
the
I could present for them. I'm project manager representation for Vantage Hill.
Okay, it looks like you guys are replacing the sliding doors, is that correct?
Correct. The sliding doors in the balcony and then all the windows.
All the windows as well. Okay. Yeah, if
Yes.
you could walk us through that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so essentially we have project where we're going to be replacing all the windows at Vantage Hill. The exterior color will be Urbane bronze. Dimension wise, they will be all the same size as the existing. The only windows that would change in terms of dimension would be windows number 43 and 44, which are within trapezoid shape, shown in the elevation plans. They would change. They are slightly decreasing in size, roughly about 2 to 3 inches. And in terms of the infill, it will be wrapped with metal coil, which would match the existing color. Outside of that, the sliding glass doors, they would all be replaced in the balcony as well. There's one caveat where there's about 30 units that recently replaced the sliding glass doors. They will be replaced as necessary, when they start deteriorating. And Vantage Hill will be having a standard requirement in terms of that. That's pretty much the entirety of this project. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, could you clarify the color, the Urbane bronze? So the spec sheets for the windows don't necessarily have that color on them, but are you guys are getting a custom color, or are they painting them all, or how is it exactly?
They're custom color.
They're gonna custom color the whole run for you guys. Okay.
Yep. St. Clair is the manufacturer for the windows, and they will be custom coloring that one at their factory.
Very cool.
We're told it's like a special vinyl adhering paint. It's kind of similar to like what they would do for an auto body shop.
So they're factory painted basically, so that way it's a good solid finish essentially.
Yeah, you won't be seeing like peeling or wear and tear. If it, as you would see if it was painted, it will be done at the factory, so it'll be pretty solid.
Gotcha. And then the only thing else I saw was the slider doors. It looks like, or maybe because obviously these are kind of the older school sliders. The slider doors are going to have a little bit thicker bottom, top rails, and side styles. Is that that's accurate?
Yep.
Okay. And those are kind of set back. Okay. And then are you guys replacing? Are you replacing anything with the? And maybe you said this was the exception, but the front doors, those are, and all the lights, all the windows around the front doors, are those part of this or no?
That may be a future project, but no plans at this time.
Okay. Okay. More is just to get the energy efficiency for the units, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
And,
Great.
these are original windows from the 60s. They're twice as old as me. They need to be replaced.
Okay. Great. All right, Brian, do you have any questions?
Why are you doing the rectangular ones and not matching the shape of the existing windows?
I can handle that, Chris. Sorry, name's Alex Wolcott. I'm the president over at Vantage Hill. So there's a number of reasons. One is just there's very specialty. It was nigh impossible to find someone even considered to talk to us about that shape. We did find one. The windows are incredibly expensive. They'd have to be made of wood, so the material would not match any of the other windows being installed. The thicknesses of the frames wouldn't match, and they wouldn't be able to do any custom colors or color matching. So it'd just be very difficult to meet other DRB covenants with the mix and match windows.
Okay, thank you.
Steph, could you find where's an example of this window that Brian just asked about? Because I think you mentioned
40,
that.
slide 46 of 62, I think has it.
46. Thank you, Elena.
And then you have to zoom way in.
Okay, yeah.
To zoom way in.
Sorry, which image on it? Is it the first, second, or third?
Top, that
Top
image
image.
right there.
Yes.
See
Is it
how
the-
those are, I guess they slide.
Sorry, I'm trying my best to get
Because
to
it almost even looks like the one on the left is bigger than the one on the right. Is that
windows with
accurate?
single.
Yeah, the bedroom ones are bigger, just per you have to be able to crawl out of it per
Right.
code.
So what is your plan for that ancillary space that's going to be created between the window frame and the kind of that wedge triangle shape?
Yeah, so we're not touching, I don't know the proper term, dormer, or I believe there's another better word for it. But so that will remain trapezoidal, that wooden arch. The space will be filled, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, with essentially a metal, like you see the below the smaller windows, the two closest to the door there, and color matched to existing.
So they'd wrap it.
So
Yeah.
so wrap it with aluminum, and it'll be the brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, the matching you see there.
Okay. So not the Urbane bronze, it'll match the brown.
Yeah, the Urbane bronze will replace the silver color you see on the frames.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, we'll match the wrap to the existing exterior there.
Okay. The only suggestion that I have, or sorry, let me keep going around the room here. Who did I leave off on, Brian? Samantha?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Camelia?
Questions, thanks.
Elena?
No questions, thanks.
Emily?
Just, it's less of a question and more of a clarification. So the current sliders that also are in that like trapezoidal shape sort of have a detail where there's the brick surrounding it. If you look at, where were we? Slide 47. Like the next one down from here. Yeah, that yellow over on the right. So there's, the opening of that is still trapezoidal, but then there's the rectangular sliding door in the center, and then there's kind of the brick on the side. So more or less, other than, again, I'm sorry, the photos are not that great. That's sort of what we're trying to replicate with the windows, is that, square peg trapezoidal hole, more or less.
Yeah, essentially. These ones are obviously much larger than the ones we're going to be replacing. And yeah, and the existing ones didn't have any brick within the like encapsulation.
Okay. Thank you.
John, you have any
These
questions?
ones on the back will remain.
A question, we had an affected party that was very concerned about having to rework the drywall inside the unit once the opening was changed to a rectangular window instead of a trapezoidal one. How is that being addressed?
Well, this time we don't really know the extent to which that will need to be changed. If you go up to the original designs near the top, you'll actually see that when these were drawn up in the 60s, they intended to put in rectangular windows. Somewhere along the lines that changed. Yeah, here. The very top picture. Or that's actually a bad example, excuse me. There was a separate page that.
I think you just passed it. But
Yeah, here, this is it right here. If you zoom in on the top there, yeah, you can see the plan was to do this initially. So it's our understanding that it's framed for this underneath. So ideally, it's just going to be us infilling the rectangle you see on either side.
But
I
on
mean,
the
right now though,
inside,
it is glass right now. So
It is.
obviously, I mean, there's gonna have to be some sort of infill on the inside.
Mhm.
Yes.
Some sort of framing with something, whether it's just trim. I don't know how these are trimmed out on the inside. And John,
Oh,
sorry if I missed an affected party. Is that affected party here that wants to speak?
I believe we do have a couple affected parties here.
All right, let's jump to them, and since we've gone around, ask our questions, and then we'll come back.
All right, I'm starting with the first one listed that I see. Actually, they might have dropped off. Simona Howe, I am asking you to unmute. And we did have
Yeah,
another.
yeah, I'm here.
Hello. Could you
Hi.
state your hello? If you could state your affected party status, you have 3 minutes to do so.
Yeah, I'm a member of the board actually at Bandage Hill, and I'm a third floor owner. I'm concerned about the extra expense we're going to incur. There is no actual frame. There's glass, as you said, inside, but mostly I'm concerned about the outside look. In the mansard outside matches the shape of the trapezoid windows. And when I moved here, I actually thought that it was a silly shaped window. And since I moved here, I've actually learned a bit more about this development. And it's one of the oldest in Reston. And it's the shape of the windows is actually part of an historic architectural feature of this development. And I think it's a shame not to keep it. Also, you can, at least I changed my windows when I moved here, and I could find a place where they could be made. They're not made of wood. I could find a color on the outside that reproduced the aluminum that was there. They may be a little more expensive, but on the other hand, we're also spending more money for the third floor, again, on windows that can be moved in various directions so they can safely be cleaned from the inside by moving the glass in and out, which is only for the third floor, which doesn't make any sense either, because there are plenty of windows on the second floor that cannot be reached from the outside either. So I think this is all misconceived. This was all supposed to be paid for by the sale of the pool, and there shouldn't be any extra cost for any of the residents, nor any special improvement for any floor over another floor. That's my point of view. But most importantly, I think the architectural feature of the trapezoid window should not be eliminated. That's all I have to say. And there are many residents here who feel the same way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff, who do you have next?
We did have another AP, although I'm not seeing them on the call any longer. I believe that's it.
Okay. Um, so my question, so staff, you've noted that there were 88 windows changing in dimension. Is that all the trapezoidal situation?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, something's gonna have to be done on the inside. I mean, you're gonna have to build some sort of frame with whether it's drywall or whatever it is on the inside. I don't know what the inside of these windows look like. And I see the historical drawings, so I don't I don't dislike the switch. I'm not, I just think it practically, I think it is a valid concern brought up by John, from reading the affected party status thoroughly. So thank you, John. Um, I do think you guys need to really think about how that's going to happen because it is going to be, as the window company, I'm assuming you guys have a contractor. I mean, have they acknowledged that at all of what they're going to do on the inside?
Yeah. They have. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, originally we did have discussions about the interior, finishing with framing out, whatever the empty space is, and then finishing with drywall. Now, in the interior of the certain units have specialty color, then obviously we can't match that, but it would be to a point where it'll be ready to paint.
Okay. So they're gonna add whatever wood blocking or something, maybe a little insulation, and then it'll get a piece of drywall over it.
Yep, and then we'll mud over it and then sand it down so they'll be ready to be painted.
Okay, and on the outside, they're gonna put a new piece of, exterior sheathing, I'm assuming. And then the window will get
Correct.
taped into that, or I guess flashed into that with that aluminum coil. Okay.
Yes.
So my question that before this was brought up, thank you for answering those questions. I was debating whether the impact on the front facades warranted the front door assembly being painted the same urbane bronze because of all the windows are. I feel like they're going to be this dominant urbane bronze color that then all of a sudden is, I think it's a great selection. I've, used it on interiors of homes actually plenty. I don't know if anyone had a thought about that. I just worry with the front elevations if it's worth painting those assemblies to keep it all kind of cohesive from the front, all harmonious and cohesive to meet our guideline. Did you guys think about that at all, or did that come up, or?
I mean, it hasn't really been something that's been discussed there. Like I said, we're throwing around the idea of changing up the main entryways around the property. It's more just a matter if there's funding left once the necessary changes are done. But no, I don't believe we looked into repainting the framing there. And just to be clear, are you talking about just the framing of the door and the windows
Yeah,
there?
just so it'd be the door, where you have all these brown
Right. But you mean like the
elements.
whole door or just the door frame and the window framing around the entryway?
Yeah, it'd be the door, it'd be all the framing and the door itself.
Okay.
Because I get that they complement the dormers or the mansards or whatever we kind of want to call these outlays, but I just wonder with all the other windows along that brick facade going to the urbane bronze if it's going, because really they're reading in that brick elevation on most of the homes. Does it make sense to have those be the same color? Maybe maybe it's not necessary. But I just wanted to throw that idea out there. I don't know if anyone thinks that's a good idea or a bad idea. I don't know.
And I think it's something that we can explore, but as Alex said, we're very tight on budgets. So it just really depends on, do we have the funding or not left, itself.
Okay. And just to be clear, I'm just suggesting paint. I'm not suggesting replacing at all. Right? I mean, paint, that's going to be the least of your worry from a cost
Oh, yeah,
standpoint.
yeah,
in the
fair
scope
enough.
of
I
this.
mean, we felt that the color matching. I mean, I'm no architect, but I don't know. It's just it felt like the color matching the
Yeah,
various
and
dormers.
I'm just suggesting it. It's
Yeah.
just something that I probably would have studied just thinking about it. But that's all. I'm just throwing I'm not saying it one way or the other. That's why I'm asking other people on the board to see if they think about it. I mean, Elena, who's been an architect twice as long as I have, could you weigh in on that idea? It doesn't pin me one way or the other. I just think it might make a difference once those windows are in. That's all.
I don't know.
Okay.
I can see it both ways.
And at the end of the day, if they're going to come back and maybe do something down the road, we can, look at it and they may, if one day they decide they don't like it, they could always paint it. So, does anyone want to make a motion?
I have a question slash suggestion before we make a motion. Was there any thought given, like I completely understand that getting these custom trapezoidal slider windows done for this many homes would be a difficult find and something probably tricky to source. Was there any thought given to potentially making these, rectangular slider windows so that they're easier to function that way? But then instead of doing the aluminum and filling in each of the trapezoids, doing what I'm going to perhaps erroneously refer to as like side lights that are just fixed triangles of glass, because to me, then you're keeping the window shape, but making it a rectangular slider. And I don't know, again, I'm not an architect here. I don't know what the cost difference would be between keeping the existing framing and putting in glass side lights that are just, set dimensions, or if those are too small in proportion. Again, I don't quite have a exact understanding of the scale here, but it was just a thought that I had as we were looking at this, of saying like, okay, I get the desire to have a rectangular slider and not have all of these be uber custom, but maybe adding in like triangular side lights would be an option that means that the interior of the homes don't have to have a renovation and we keep that architectural character. Anyone?
It's a good thought, but it's really hard to make a skinny glass triangle. There's got to be some kind of flat edge just so that the glass doesn't break. So that would mean that the operable portion of the window has to get even smaller. And I think it might introduce, I mean, right now, I think, let me look at the drawings, but it looks like the top part will be as wide as the top part of the rectangular window. The dimension of the rectangular window will fit nest into the width of the
Yeah, go to slide 26, please.
dormer. 26. And if you put side lights in, that would have to be much narrower in order to put in a side light. I mean, it's a good idea.
We did actually look into this, and it was what I thought we were going to go with. But a couple companies, like you said, just because of the size of vinyl framing, just couldn't do it. And then the other half was frankly shockingly expensive, maybe even more expensive than just building them out of wood.
Yeah, you'd have to, if you look at slide 26, you'd have to make that side light come in because of the width of the framing, etc. Quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it would change kind of the overall dimension of the window. It's my opinion. I'll let the young whippersnapper.
No, I mean, I was gonna say it was probably impossible to build that way. Just, yeah.
All good. Just thought I'd float it out there.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate the residents who have come up to speak tonight and really interested in preserving the character of the architectural character of it. I think it's still going to be maintained. I mean, this window surround thing projects out of the facade pretty far. I think you're still going to feel that character. I think it's still going to be a very strong moment. And I also think there's precedent for it within the, we've seen on the sliding glass doors in the upper floors where there was that, it was brick infill, but like there was still the trapezoidal shape cut out in the roof, things like that. So I hear your concerns, but I do think that the character will be maintained even going with these windows that we see on this slide.
Great points, Brian. With all that, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application as submitted.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second. No.
No, you go ahead.
Second by John.
Second.
Any further discussion on it? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right. Jumping over to application K, the Springs at Ruston.
I would ask the applicant to unmute.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great.
All right, is this Matt I'm speaking with?
Yes, that's correct.
Matt, if you could welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you for providing the new tree planting plan. If you could kind of walk us through the new information that you brought back, and then that'll kind of help us kind of get everyone up to speed based on our last deferral.
Sure. So the last time I was here, you had asked for just a plan that I guess better defined where on the property the trees were that we were talking about, and then just further information for the reason why some of the non-dead trees we wanted to take down, and then clarification on what we were doing for the stumps. And so if you recall, we actually hired an arborist who came out and put together a report. So that's what was submitted. So you have the arborist report, and then I went through it and just labeled. Yeah, if you see right there, like number 1. So 1, 2 on down, those are the trees that aren't dead yet, but the trees that we want to remove. And then if you look at the report, the way it's written, it kind of speaks for itself. So just for instance, number 1 and number 2, those 2 trees, they're Bradford pear trees. And then if you look under 2, the second bullet point, it just notes why we thought those should come down. There's cavities, lots of included bark, codominant stems. And then it was a little confusing. So I guess the answer to your last question, if you go down to page 2, they just separated the stumps out. So now if you see like right under 14 to 19 where it says stump grinding for low risk removal, so it has those same trees. So we take the tree down, we take the stumps out. I think in most cases we're removing the stumps. There is one, I recall there's one that's right next to an electrical transformer. That one obviously we'll cut the tree down as close to grade as possible. So I tried to better label this so you could follow it. Again, the report, most of the trees that we're talking about are trees that are either not dead, but have a lot of, dead limbs in them, more than normal, excessive lean, wrong tree for wrong location, things like that. And then from the arborist report, I zoomed in so you could see the actual kind of bullet of where each tree was, but then I created that initial site plan that you first had up so that you could see bigger picture on the site where each of the trees were that we were talking about. This is actually the new planting plan, but there is a site plan in there where I label, if we just follow the same example of tree 258, 259, I think it's that one right there. So then you can see 258, 259 are right, at one of the main entrances to the property. So I labeled them on here in addition to, if you go to the very, let's see, next, I think it's next slide. So here you can see this is from the report. So you see it from the report. I zoomed in. There was no way to zoom in on the report and give you a full view of the site. So I zoomed in so you could see it was something the arborist noted in the report to try and tie it all together. And then I just created a site plan to show you big picture of where all the trees were. And then I think the last thing I included, I went around and took a picture of each of the trees, and I tried to get a picture of what they were referring to, whether, standing back so you can see the lean in the picture, zooming in. So I tried to make this as easy as possible to walk all the way through. And then the last item of note that we talked about before, which was the first slide that popped up, is we had come before the board probably a little over a year ago and done a significant landscaping upgrade. And so the arborist came up with a plan to replace almost 1-for-1 the trees that we want to take down. So we are proposing to plant 24 new trees around the property that are better suited for the locations that that some of these trees are in, and then more native trees to what you normally find, as opposed to a Bradford pear and things like that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matt.
So these trees kind of, and hopefully it all lines up now. I took the report, I labeled it, I showed you where on a site plan. The report has all the documentation and reasoning for why we want to remove it. And then I had another site plan of, the number of trees we'd replace and approximate locations as best we could of where we go. We'd walk with the arborist and, they'd put it in a final location. But this gives you a good idea of trees that'll infill islands, trees that we can infill islands in certain areas. The 8 trees in the central area, that's just, we have a playground, a picnic area and things like that. So we just work to locate those where they could grow and not conflict with other trees in that area. So we'd put almost an equal number of trees back around the site to complement the rest of the landscaping that we did this time last spring.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Definitely much better and helpful. It looks like you had Elliot come out and evaluate most of these trees too. Okay. Let me jump to see if we have any questions for you, and we'll come back. So Brian, do you have any questions? Or are there any affected parties? Sorry, Steph.
No, I don't believe there are.
Okay. Brian, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Samantha?
No question. Looking forward for Emily's comments.
Camelia?
No questions.
Elena?
No questions, thank you.
John?
No.
Emily? We
Hi.
defer to your expertise here. What do you think of the tree replacements? I mean, the tree removals.
Mostly looking through the report. One, thank you for the updated plan and the very thorough report. In general, I don't have any questions. It looks like we're mostly trying to take out non-desirable species at the moment and or ones that are already dead and replacing them with ones that are going to be of a hopefully longer lasting than the lovely Bradford pears and white pines that we've got in here. My only consideration is, and this is, I'd have to take a little bit more time and run a little bit more math. It appears like that we are going to be close to canopy coverage because it looks like we have about 9,700 square feet of canopy coverage. Is that what that? Sorry, there's the pages with the giant pictures make this hard to sort through.
Hey, I appreciated the giant pictures because that made it where you could actually view them.
Sorry, we are at 97,000 square feet of tree canopy area in the neighborhood, and I would like to see that maintained as we're going through. So we don't have a amount of canopy that we are removing versus how much canopy that we are replacing, but just from a cursory glance, it looks like we're removing some smaller species of trees and adding in some larger canopy coverage. So I'm okay with the disparity in quantity from 38 to 24 because it appears that species that we are planning on putting in, for some of them, will get larger eventually. But go around the room, ask a few more questions and let me run some math. Thanks.
Well, and I also think that, Emily, the 97,000, that's the landscaped tree canopy, right? They're removing, a lot of the trees are getting removed in some of these, let's call it forested area. And then they're planting back some trees in the forested area as well. And then there's trees also getting planted, obviously, in the landscaped areas. The one thing I wanted to ask you is, I'm not familiar with this Zelkova tree. Is
We
that,
like Zelkovas.
you like Zelkovas?
We
Okay,
like
I
Zelkovas.
had to
They're very
Google it.
good for urban street trees. We like them.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask because it's going like in this really skinny median. And so I
Yep.
just wanted to make sure that it was a good, appropriate kind of species for that. From what I looked at, it looks like it actually grows pretty big, but I guess it has a pretty deep growing root system, maybe.
Yeah, you can basically plant them in a shoebox and surround them in concrete and they'll do just fine, which is one
Great.
of the reasons we like them.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with any of the species that are indicated with the possibility of actually adding back in white pines. I would never, but I'm not like morally opposed to it. For any reason, they're just difficult little creatures right now. Yeah, those are my comments. I think that it's a good selection, a good list. I would like to see the calipers be increased a little bit. Normally we say like 2.5 inch, but don't we usually staffs have 2.5 inch listed on our caliper, or we just say 2 to 2.5 inch?
Normally
Yeah.
2.
I think it's usually 2 inch.
Oh, never mind. All right. I just
Yeah, I could be wrong. I'm not opposed to the caliper. I mean, the Zelkovas, it'd be nice to do something a little bigger so they actually have a little bit bigger impact sooner because it's gonna be a ton of parking lot that's gonna be not under canopy for a long time. I don't know how quick those things grow, but that's the only thing that I, could agree with. But otherwise, I think most of it is good, and I appreciate the in thorough report for that, Matt. It sounds like you had to do it a lot of yourself, so much appreciated.
Well, yeah, I mean, the arborists they did the lion's share of the work, but then I helped just further meet with them and
Yeah, but
lay out.
sometimes there's that final connection between
yeah,
what they're labeling a tree and what we are looking at, and it gets very confusing. So the way you set it up
so
was helpful.
I tried to add pictures and everything else. And then to your point, we did try and look at it practically too. That's why we put some trees back in islands so we could sort of keep that canopy. And it's tough to get a good couple pictures of an overall view of the site because there is a lot of tree cover out there. So we also want to place these trees where one, we can preserve all of the canopy, but two, they're not going to, in 5 years grow into another tree and then we're back to where it's leaning and creating more problems for us. So.
And I also do appreciate where possible, especially in those forested areas, leaving the tree snags is just good wildlife habitat. The woodpeckers go nuts for them. So I saw that listed in one. If there are other trees that are being left in the existing canopy area and we don't want to recommend stump grinding them, that is something that is good for the habitat.
Sure, no, right. And there are other dead trees that we didn't note because they were just not in close enough proximity to the buildings where we were worried that Arbor said the exact same thing. Great to leave because it's great for, habitat and everything else.
Yeah. Awesome.
And sorry, Matt, you may have said this, but just to be clear, all the trees that are in like those little islands that are getting removed. Those, it says, the arborist report says kind of cut as close to the ground as possible, but those ones you are going to actually stump grind, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right. Just want to clarify that because the arborist report doesn't. It just says cut as close to the ground, but I think I would just like to add that. So
yeah, most of them they know, but yes, that is the intent. Like I said, there's one that's next to an electrical transformer, a couple that are maybe off in some wooded areas, so we can just leave that for birds and such. But everything else,
okay,
yes, we know we'll have to grind the stumps.
Does anybody have any other thoughts, comments, motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application as submitted.
All right.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I would just add some further clarification that the stumps be grinded where on parking lot islands minus the one that is by an electrical panel, just as clarification.
I will accept your clarification / amendment. John, do you still second?
Indeed, second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you coming back. All right. Jumping over to back to application H. I believe I saw Sean join.
Yes, I'm asking him to unmute now.
Hello.
There you
Hey,
are.
Sean. Welcome
Hi.
back.
Good evening. Thank you.
All right, so you are back. If you could walk us through
Mhm.
your kind of new updated, I think it's on slide 5, staff. I think all of us are pretty familiar with this application. If you want to walk us through kind of what you did since our last meeting to kind of help bring that natural area back, and kind of still get you your green fence. If you could kind of walk us through that,
Yeah.
that would be great.
We took the recommendation from last meeting, then worked with the advice of Preston Gardner, and working very long hours with designer, and we came to the plan that you can see it with the trees putting on the back, and then put a shrub between to give a natural look, and they made very different trees that is looks very natural. These pictures, it is just give how it's gonna looks in the future, but probably the trees, they are not same as we are selecting. It is a different kind, but there's gonna give it look of the very natural look.
So staff, if you go to slide 10, I thought this was the best way to see, I appreciated the diagram to kind of show how far these are going to be spaced apart, but this is the one that actually has the species on it. I wish it was clearer. Steph, did you guys get a copy of this or just this image? Because it's very difficult to read. Did you guys just get a picture of this?
We received the image.
Okay. The only thing I would love is to get an actual formal copy of this if possible, because it's very hard to read. But I want to go and just see if there's any affected parties here, and I believe maybe Margaret wants to say something as well. So is there any of the affected parties on staff that we could hear from?
I do not believe we do have one that's on. Let me double check. Sorry, pull down. Is either Juris Kelly, Luis Duray, or Kathy Kaplan, Patricia Ruther online? If any of you are online, please raise your hand or mention something in the chat. I am not seeing them.
Okay. I think the biggest thing that they had some issues with now is just to make sure Miss Utility is called, which is not our purview, but Mr. Amir answered them. So all right, and then Margaret, you would like to say something?
Or just to say, Mr. Mayor provided me a copy of all of this, and I actually went through and looked at what each tree was. So I would be happy to provide that in a clearer format, because I made notes for it myself.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can read it. It's just, I just want to make for documentation purposes a little easier.
I'd be happy to help get Cam because I there were a couple where I was like, what does that say? And but I was able to figure it out based on the list, comparing the list to the drawing.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for your.
And I submitted the whole plan, the original one, also to Mrs. Charlotte Smith.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's go around the room, see if anyone has any questions for you, and then we will go from there. Brian, you have any questions?
I'm just trying to understand on, I guess on slide 9, particularly the pink circles along Leatherwood Drive. I assume that's along the embankment, possibly. What, can you explain what the pink circles are, specifically along Leatherwood?
I think this is the existing.
Yeah,
Those are
circles
existing trees.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
There are a ton of canopy trees on that property.
Okay.
Right. That's it for me for now. I'll go on to someone else.
Okay. Samantha,
No question.
Camelia?
So on the slide 9 that Brian just pointed out, I see on the legend there's, a blue diamond for new trees. Are there any new trees on what we're seeing right now, or am I missing something?
Yeah, it is all of them changed to the new design. This is everything under design in a zigzag form, which they give it the full natural look. And the trees are all different, that we don't have the green giant or whatever. There's all the same species. They change it to give the natural look from the beginning that they are planting.
Yeah, I definitely think, Camelia, looking at slide it's still, don't get me wrong, it's still a little confusing, but slide 10 is probably your best bet to see
Oh yeah, it
the
was hard for me
new
to see it on
trees.
there. Okay.
Those are all the new trees, but this doesn't show the existing trees. And so it's almost like I want them to like overlay the pink just
Be
circles on
helpful.
this existing, but that's not quite, obviously what we have. But and they're also oriented differently. So if you kind of look, you have to kind of rotate the plan to get the
Right.
curve down to the bottom of the page, to give you your kind of best ability to see what's going on there.
Okay. And then keeping up with this diagram that's on the screen right now. So the stone patio has been removed. And when you say green lawn applied, does that mean you just have planted new grass?
Which one?
And right in the middle where it says stone patio removed and then
Uh-huh.
green lawn applied, does that mean you've taken out the patio entirely and you've just planted new grass?
No, the patio is this is the future plan. On the original the plan that I submitted, the plot, on the plot, it is the, let me check here on the,
I think, Camelia, yes, your understanding is correct. There was a patio there that was removed,
oh yeah, that is a long time ago we removed, yes.
and there is grass there now. If you look at some of the pictures, maybe on page 51, you can see the existing condition based on.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Okay. That answers my questions. Thanks.
Elena?
No questions, thank you.
John?
No questions.
Emily?
Hi. Thank you so much for the resubmittal. I've never been happier that I have a giant monitor because I can look at page 10. My only question for the applicant is, are you married to the Mahonia? The Winter Sun Mahonia. While that's not quite what we would categorize as an invasive species, it's certainly pernicious. So that would be my question is do you have any flexibility on the species for the Mahonia?
This is only a couple of them, and the reason is there's evergreen bush.
Yes.
And in winter, which everything is dead, they have they are green, and in December they give the very beautiful yellow color as it blooms. I think they give a better look if there's snow is on the ground, everything, and there's some beautiful yellow color is green. They attract also probably animals or something around that bush.
Yep, no, you are right. And they're evergreen, they're wonderful. They remind me of dinosaurs. They're very Jurassic looking. They just do have a tendency to spread a little bit. So that would be my concern both for you and any neighboring properties is that they can wander. This particular cultivar is not well known for that, so I'm not 100% against it. I wouldn't say I'm not going to approve this application because you have Mahonia on it. I would just suggest maybe an alternative species for that particular shrub, since you are looking at 11 of them and spread throughout the property. But that's my only question. Everything else makes sense, and I'm cool with it. Aside from on the newest, sorry, I just noticed this. On the newest one, oh, we do have sizes listed. Cool. We're good. Never mind. Move on for me.
Okay. All right. The only questions I have, and it's more of just clarifying things because I'm still, the drawing is still a little confusing. So what I had to do is I rotated it. So slide 10, I rotated because the curved section of the property is the area along Leatherwood.
That's
And
correct.
along Leatherwood already has, can you rotate it the other way so it matches the plat? So the curved is at the bottom. Because this is what's confusing me. So go back, you had it perfect.
Is that right?
No, the curve at the bottom.
Wait, hold on. Sorry. One
You had
second.
it perfect.
Is that it?
No, keep going. Flip it
This
180
one?
degrees. No, one more time.
Okay. This one?
Yeah. So if you then scroll up to page 9, you can see that then aligns with this curve
Oh.
in the driveway and the way it goes. And so what I'm confused at is it looks like a lot of these trees, you're also going to be planting a lot of trees along Leatherwood Drive as well. Is that accurate?
No, because the designer look again back to the property and they saw that is a lot of canopy trees over there, and this is mostly tall bushes that they are putting along the Leatherwood Drive.
Okay. Because they're called out as and maybe Margaret, since you reviewed this with some detail, do you understand what I'm asking here? Does this make sense?
It looks like the only trees that are being placed along there are a couple, like a serviceberry, a dogwood.
A dogwood.
Yeah, but those are understory canopy, like those are understory trees, so they won't mind being underneath an existing canopy, and they're 20 to 30 foot height. I don't know what those existing canopy trees are, but if they're looking for privacy from the road, it's not.
Yeah, I just want to make sure because previously there was never anything going there, and so I just want to make sure that now we're all on the same, page.
Yes. So Michael, if you don't mind, along that side, that is correct. It's all canopy trees. And so they were adding smaller trees and shrubs. So understory and shrubs.
Okay.
It also prevents, from seeing the neighbors' cars.
Gotcha.
I know there was some other discussions regarding that hill. And I know that there may be future plans, but pretty much what you're seeing along there are understory and shrubs.
Yeah, so I just wanted the reason why I was reorienting the diagram was because I wanted to see the big reason why this application came about also was the natural wooded area that was affected in the back corner, which is basically kind of the top of the page now. And so we have a red bud going back. We have then bordered by a green giant to the left of that, then a American holly, then another green giant, then a crepe myrtle, and then going the other way, a vibram something.
Vibram.
Viburnum,
What is that?
big
Emily?
shrub, big dang shrub.
Big shrub. So is it not a natural species?
Viburnums are, that's just a cultivar
Okay.
thereof. So, I mean, those, you're
And then
probably
a
talking like 10 to 12
holly.
feet.
Obviously the giant. Okay. I'm just trying to make sure that kind of the point of the whole process was to make sure that that natural wooded area was going, you know, relatively, back. I think it's definitely better. It's definitely better. We've been here for probably, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 meetings. So it's definitely better. What does anyone else think? I'm gonna go around and make you guys say yes or no. So Brian, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I agree. It's much better. I appreciate the effort that the applicant put into this, to reach out to an expert and things like that. I hate to even bring it up. I'm just concerned that what I'm not seeing here was that kind of embankment on Leatherwood with some kind of ground cover. But because I think that was a concern going through. But I'd be willing to table that and kind of look at it. It's been a long time, so maybe that the condition has changed there. But that was the reason about my question for the pink circles, was trying to understand.
Yeah, underneath portion of Leatherwood.
Correct. So I think that these shrubs and stuff are great for adding privacy to the owner. I'm not quite sure they address the concerns that we and the neighbors had in terms of the embankment, but
What if we just recommend some like
yeah,
300 Pachysandra and just, I don't know, Emily's probably gonna shake her head, but
It's invasive.
well, Pachysandra's not.
Mr. Mayor, I had recommended he address this in advance because there is a plan. It's just they separated it from this piece. So I was
There is a
hoping he
plan.
would speak to it.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the plan there, sir?
Yeah, I wanted to separate this one because that one is going to be planted. I sent an email to Mrs. Charlotte that for that hill area, probably I had to added what was the name you mentioned again? This Pack Sanders something. That one, which is going to happen by me, by my company, to plant it over there. There's a lot of green plants growing over there, which was before, but most pictures was taken in winter. That was not visible, but right now, everywhere it is a lot of green plants, which I have to plant between these plants to make this happen.
And I apologize for butting in, but I do know that there was discussion of green and gold and some other things. His landscape artist had recommended, and I don't believe it was called Pachysandra. I believe it was called something else, but I'd have to go back and look at those notes.
I think is a really good point, and if we decide to make a motion, I think it would be good to have a caveat in there that we would like to see an application for the stabilization of the slope. Because again, that can be done with a lot of different species. It can be done with planting, it can be done with hydroseeding, it can be done with erosion control matting, there's lots of different ways to do that, but just ensuring that it's stabilized and however that is done, as a addendum to whatever motion we make tonight, I would highly recommend.
Sure, that was my plan too, Emily. Thank you.
All right. Samantha, do you have any comments?
No comment, thank you.
Camelia?
Comments?
Elena?
No, thank you.
Emily, you've kind of
I've said my piece.
John.
We've heard from Emily. Let's move on.
I don't have anything else. I just wanted to make sure we were clarified so everyone kind of understood what was going on. Good catch by Brian on the ground cover. I think we're close. I think we've beaten this thing up. I think it's a ton of landscaping that's going back. I think it's mostly all native. I would have liked the back area to be a little bit more native in that one corner. But at the end of the day, I think the property is going to be beautiful once all this grows in, and it'll all be landscaped. So I don't see any, objection to it. So I'll make, or does anyone want to make a motion, or I'll make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the plan as submitted.
Right, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. I would just to recommend that we add some further clarification in there about the ground cover under the leatherwood section of tree canopy.
Would you like to make a revision to my motion?
Yeah, I'm just suggesting you add that to your, or I guess I'll amend your
Sure.
motion to include that. And
Um,
Amelia, do you accept that?
Do, yeah.
All right, perfect. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Sean. Thank you so
very
much for all your work going through this. Thank you, Margaret, for clearly helping above and beyond than what you needed to. So much appreciated there as well. And appreciate whoever else gave some help. And hopefully it turns out to be a great project. So
I have one question, if you allow me.
Yeah.
The planting is scheduled for June 6th. Is it something we can go forwards and allow them to start the planting?
I think you have correct me if I'm wrong, staff, a week for the letter. So next week the letters go out on Monday or Tuesday, right? And then the appeal process on this is what?
Yeah, the
7
letter
days
out on
later.
Tuesday. You have 7 days to appeal. So
From the letter date, though?
from the letter date, yes.
Yeah, so if all that works out, Sean, that'd be, I think, June 5th. I can't do math that quickly of dates, but I think it'd be before that. But just verify with staff, a couple days before that appeal period is up, just to make sure, because you have had some affected parties on this. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good. Yeah,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you very much.
Appreciate it
Appreciate
again.
that. Thank you for everybody. Have a
Thank you.
good night.
All right. Do we have anything else on our agenda? I don't actually have it up anymore. I think I lost my.
Yes, we have one more thing, but I'll try to make it quick. It's actually a list of things that I'll go through. Thanks, Wally, for joining us tonight. Wally is interested in a lay member person's position to the DRB, and he has sat here since 7 o'clock. So thanks for joining us, and I'll be talking to you soon, and connect you to Michael Wood, the chair, for a follow-up conversation as well.
It's exhilarating, right, Wally?
Just as a reminder, we do have 3 open positions coming up. So if any current DRB member, Elena, if you'd like to reapply, please make sure to submit your applications now. The status of the design guidelines, additions and revisions. I just wanted you all to be aware that the board did request that those design guidelines come back to them. We are tentatively scheduled to the June 12th board meeting. For those of you that aren't aware, we reviewed about 60 design guidelines over the course of several years. And we presented the first phase of those with Michael B. on Kino on September 12th of last year. The board had some comments and changes to some of the design guidelines, and they approved some of the design guidelines. But we are now coming back with those that were delayed. Most importantly, the lighting design guidelines, specifically for string lights. So that will be coming back to the board. There were some changes that I will send to the DRB, just some clarifications on permanent versus temporary. and that sort of thing. The design guideline was shared with the Environmental Advisory Committee. So I'm not sure if this will come back to you all with some suggestions. If the DRB would like to take this on again in terms of specifics related to lighting, but clearly we are having constant lighting conversations. So it might be prudent to yet again look at that design guideline that's already in motion, or take off another option, which is a segue into the Reston Association Board of Directors generally has an annual meeting with the Design Review Board and the Covenants Committee in the resolution. We've not had that meeting in quite some time, so you all may be pinged by LaShonda or I in the near distant future, looking for some polling and dates for that meeting to happen sometime in the next couple of months. So just stay tuned for that and the updates for the design guidelines. Once any additional design guidelines get approved, we'll send that out to the DRB. And if any DRB members are wanting or willing to join the meeting on June 12th, please let LaShonda or myself know. And this might be a question for you all to think about, and Michael might want to bring it up again. But we are getting some comments about in-person meetings, specifically maybe the full DRB. I think an inevitable conversation is going to be whether or not the DRB should have full DRB or portions of full DRB meetings, whether that's, half the meetings of the year are in person every other month, or starting to slowly trickle in-person full DRB meetings at some point in the near distant future. I think that will be something that will come up during a joint board meeting, that you all may want to kind of be prepared amongst yourselves to kind of look at that and see if there's an opportunity to do so. Since I've been here in 5 years, June 1st, we've never had an in-person DRB meeting. So it may be prudent to start having those discussions and willingness to participate and have some DRB members here in person. We do hybrid meetings. We can do some hybrid meetings as a tester for DRB members only. There's lots of different options out there that you all may want to consider. And if interested, staff can most certainly provide some suggestions. So those are kind of like the housekeeping things that I wanted to go over. Happy to answer any questions. But I do think that those are really important things that are going to come up in the next couple of weeks. Oh, and also, Reston Town Center North did submit a PRC plan that is going to the county for review. At some point in the near future, it will come to the Design Review Board. I sent the vice chairs and the chair an email of that PRC plan with the proffer language. It is a rather long document, but I would suggest, and I'll send it out to the entire DRB this evening, everyone to be familiar with it, because it is a large project that will have major implications for Reston Association, but also has to go through the Design Review Board process. And we've been talking about whether design guidelines are appropriate or not appropriate. So I think once the Reston Association Board of Directors really gives and affirms some direction on that particular part in terms of reviewing what the PRC plan is from the Land Use Committee, we'll have a better idea of what the desires of the board are, and maybe that will come out more so in the joint DRB meeting. But I do want you all to be aware that the plan has been submitted to the county, and it will inevitably come to the Design Review Board at some point in time.
And can I ask a question on that, Cam?
Sure.
Are all of the parcels under DRB purview, including that new one that they just purchased along New Dominion Parkway that connects to Library Street?
I can show you,
because I thought that parcel isn't that part of Town Center, or is that?
I can show you the actual map.
Because that was what I was reviewing it, and I was trying to figure out which one is actually under their, whatever, and so.
So these are the parcels all the parcels that you see are Reston Association. So blocks 1 through 8, and then parcel 3F, which is to the left near Edgewater. And this is the Government Center Police Station, and this is Bowman Town's of apartments. They're technically townhomes, but they are rental units.
Yeah, the ones we
for the
just
county.
reviewed, like the grass and the
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah. And the only other parcel that is subject to DRB is this parcel here. But that's not a part of this project.
Okay. So so the parcel that they, the little extension right there down on New Dominion Parkway, that is Reston Association, because isn't the building next, the big building to the right, isn't that not Reston Association?
Correct. So where the library is and where the homeless shelter are currently are the 2 parcels that you see down below.
Well, but remember, there's that little square that's currently shown as still part of the parcel that they just purchased. So I don't know if I can write on this. Like if you go right there, Dominion Parkway, where there's that new apron shown, that's between the kinder care and that apartment building. That actually was a separate lot that wasn't part of all previous applications that now they must have bought it within the last year or 2.
Gotcha. Understood. So
And
no,
I just wanted to make sure that that parcel, as odd as it seems, if it's under Reston Association or not. That's all I was curious about.
it is not. Everything that you see highlighted here is, though.
Okay. All right. All right, cool. Does anyone have any questions for Cam on anything he mentioned? In-person hybrid. I like it.
Awesome.
South
That's all I
Lakes
had to report.
South Lakes High School kids would love that because that's where
Well,
they want to present.
It's not just that. I just think especially with this application as an example, the RTC North, I think when it's in person, it also puts a little bit more paramount on us as board members to really be more thorough in our review ahead of time, which I think is important on those bigger applications. And so that's, ultimately, I know, we're all, sometimes we're busy with our full-time jobs. I get it. And sometimes I'm even guilty of, half the time. So if it's a new application, I haven't looked at it fully. I only glanced over it briefly, but if you're in person, you kind of have to fully look at it, right? And you fully have to kind of know what you're walking yourself into that night. And so I know it's more time. I know it's more effort. But I do think, especially Reston Town Center North as an example, that's going to leave a lasting impact on Reston for, a long time. And so I just want to make sure that we get it right in our review. And yeah, I just think it would help to be in person for sure. So
would applicants have the option, and this is just spitballing here, but like of checking if they want like a virtual or an in-person review? Because like if we alternate, we say like, hey, we do one meeting a quarter that's in person, and everybody wants to do that in-person meeting, then we would obviously like want to open it up. But if there are still tons of applicants who would be fine or want to keep things virtual because it's easier for them, like do we have that as maybe as an option on their application as we move forward with kind of going?
Well, that's also a benefit of hybrid, because if you do hybrid, then they can stay virtual if they want.
That's true.
So
we would not want to give them that option. We would not have a hybrid be the option.
So
I think we need a deeper bench if we're gonna go in person, because like I wouldn't have shown up tonight because I'm coughing and hacking up a lung, and I can mute myself.
No, but that's the thing.
Well,
You
again,
can
that's
attend hybrid.
hybrid.
You can attend by hybrid, right? So that's
we can do.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I'm all for that. That's fine.
Yeah, because that was the big thing. Like with Mike B, like he's definitely no to in person, but he's like, if I can do hybrid, then I'm all for it.
And I've done hybrid on the RA board meetings for the last year because of my injury. So yeah, it's but I want to thank you all. I have absolutely been pushing for the joint RA and DRB meeting. I think we all need to make sure we're on the same page, that we're recognizing that whether you guys like it or not, you set precedent within Reston. And that can be a huge slippery slope and major factor. So, I think it's good for us all to come together and have those conversations. And I know that I certainly wrote notes tonight to take back to the board for things that we may need to look at to make sure we clean up some guidelines so that we really are all on the same page within Reston and what is important to Reston. So I appreciate all of your time. I appreciate all that you've done. I am no longer the DRB liaison, so unless there's certain things, I will not be seeing your lovely faces until we have that joint meeting. So thank you all so very, very much. I do know tonight was a long meeting, but it was important and lots of good things. So thank you.
Awesome. Michael,
so
that
much.
is it for tonight.
All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
I'll second it, John. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank
Aye.
you.
All right, motion passes 7-0. Thank you guys. Thank you, everybody. Have a
Thank
great
you,
night.
everybody.
Wally, don't run away if you're scared.
Thank you.